Hey everyone, I'm back from a very busy harvest season to talk about some new and upcoming novels, my review of the Queen's Trilogy, and your mailbag questions. The date is August 4th, 2022, and you're tuned in for episode 65 of the Star Wars Canon Podcast.
There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Star Wars Canon Podcast. I am your host, Brian Miller, live from the 1138 studios here in Southwest Kansas. And with me, as always, is my partner in crime to talk about our favorite thing in the world, Mr. Usef Wally. How are you doing, brother?
Mr. Miller, it has been a long time coming.
It has.
Really happy. Yeah, it has. Yeah, I'm really happy to be on here talking with you about Star Wars, everything. We got a lot to catch up on. The good thing is that we got a lot of time to be able to catch up on this. So we're going to have some good general convos at first, and we can deep dive a lot later on. So I'm really excited. Really excited.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we've got a packed episode, too, for this week. For those of you who may be turning in for the first time, we are returning from our hiatus, our annual hiatus. I work at a grain elevator in Kansas, and so when harvest season rolls around, I usually have to take a hiatus and step away and take care of my day job for a little while. And then all the Star Wars news happens during the summer while I'm off, and then we come back and we have this huge episode we got to do, talking about everything.
Star Wars news, Star Wars episodes, Star Wars everything.
Right, and so this episode is the big return, and so I thought what we'd do this week, Usef, is sit down and kind of talk a little bit about current and future canon, some of the novels that are out right now. Like we were talking before we started recording, I'm in the middle of Brotherhood right now. We can talk about that a little bit and kind of what we're expecting out of some of these upcoming novels. We just got a new trailer for Andor. We've got that coming in September now that they pushed it back into September a little bit. But I figured we could sit down and talk about all of that and kind of cover what has come out over the last, so many months. We wrapped up High Republic Phase 1. I know you're itching to get into High Republic stuff, so I figured we'd do like a wrap-up of High Republic Phase 1 and not give any spoilers because Usef has not yet read it, and I don't want to ruin anything for him. Because you and I have talked in length about High Republic and kind of some of the things that you're looking forward to in that era and in that phase of that era, and I don't want to ruin anything for you. But one of the things I told Usef is when you're reading these books, go ahead and allow yourself to be attached to whichever characters you want to be attached to. Because Usef knows this. Not everybody is safe. You know what I mean? Like by the end of Phase 1. So
yeah, exactly,
go ahead and allow yourself to be attached to these characters because you're going to get the full emotional roller coaster ride as this phase goes on and on. Don't distance yourself, man, because you know something could happen to some of these characters. Go ahead and get attached to them. Love them. Just get into who they are. That's my advice to you for Phase 1.
Yeah, that is the journey, basically. So I know that I haven't gone into this yet, but that is the journey that I want to go on. So the reason why I haven't gotten into yet the High Republic, I wanted to read up a little bit more. So I caught up on a lot of novels. The most recent, my favorite of the most recent ones that I got to read was Bloodline. Bloody-tastic, amazing book.
Bloodline is really good, yeah.
It is fantastic. And so I'm waiting so I can get into Brotherhood and Shadow of the Sith. So once I'm done with those, I'm gonna want to focus on High Republic because firstly it's overdue, right? So I know I'm overdue.
Oh yeah.
I know I should have done this a while ago. Yeah, exactly. And I really want to get this done with. I don't want to rush through it. I just want to make sure that I experience it. So
absolutely.
I'm caught up, so I can then have a sort of mental pathway of like, oh, I'm in parallel again. So I know this other sort of plot line is going in parallel with whatever I wanted to do with what I previously known in Star Wars, because High Republic is going to have a lot of stuff going on with it anyway in the future, especially especially looking forward to. I'm not sure if this is the correct time to actually talk about this yet, but obviously we've potentially seen that the show, what's it called? Excuse me. Acolyte.
Acolyte,
Yeah, I'm
yes.
fucking sorry, I spaced there for like a minute. Yeah, so Acolyte is going to be really pivotal for this because I want to build up to it properly.
Right.
So yeah, that's something I'm really looking forward to. I got to build up to it properly. Is what I'm trying to give weight to this. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm trying to have a proper build up.
And what'll be cool with you kind of reading Phase 1 now, kind of because now you have the opportunity to binge Phase 1, which is something, a lot of us that kept up with it were not able to do.
Exactly.
And so with you able to sit down and just go through each thing bit by bit and get the entire story, you now that Phase 1's complete, you're not rushed. Phase 2 doesn't even start until October, and they can go ahead and start going while you're still in Phase 1. You know what I mean? And once you get through Phase 1 and kind of take your time at it and go through it at your own pace, there'll be plenty of Phase 2 for you to dive right into also, so but yeah, we can talk a little bit about Phase 1 here in a little bit, because I want to talk about the Queen's trilogy. It's now wrapped up. I want to talk about Brotherhood because, like I said, I'm like 3/4 of the way through it right now. There's a lot to talk about. So before we get into all of the canon that we want to kind of give our thoughts on, and before we get into the mailbag questions with everybody, let's talk a little bit about some housekeeping stuff that we usually have to get out of the way for every episode. Patreon. If you guys are a fan of the show or a fan of the Marvel cast with Stephen Hall and JG Karst, they're doing a great job over there. If you guys are a fan of either show, visit our Patreon. It's patreon.com/1138productions. You can show some love there. For you Star Wars fans, we've got full reactions up right now of Book of Boba Fett. And I've got the first 4 episodes, my reaction to the first 4 episodes of Obi-Wan up right now. The last 2 are coming, but those are on there for the patrons right now as we speak. You guys can also check out 1138productions.com for the timelines, not only canon, but legends also. It's finally on there. And I'm working on updating the canon one because I'm coming back from my hiatus, so it's time to put everything on there that has come out since my hiatus started. So that will be updated within the next week. Also on that website, you can find this podcast and the Marvel cast that I mentioned earlier. And it's a great place to reach out and make contact with us also. You can send mailbag questions through the website and everything like that. So definitely check that out. Also, coming up on November 11th, mark your calendars. November 11th, I'm going to be sitting down and doing a 24-hour live stream right here on the YouTube channel. And this live stream is going to mainly be, the purpose of it is mainly going to be to raise awareness for something that means a lot to me, something that hits home for me, and that's veteran suicide. It's something that I've had to deal with firsthand in my life. When I came home, I dealt with a bunch of stuff in my mind that really put me in some dark places, and a lot of my buddies also dealt with the same thing, and a few of them they couldn't handle it. So it's something that has hit home with me, and it's something that I really want to try to raise some awareness of, and also try to raise some money for. So during this live stream, we're probably going to end up sitting down and playing the first Last of Us video game. I think that's what we're going to end up sitting down and doing for 24 hours. And if we finish it, we'll just go into part 2, and we'll just keep on going with the story. But I think during that live stream, we're going to be giving away hardback copies of some Star Wars canon novels. I've got a huge list of them. And I'm going to have them broken into 2 different categories: standalone novels and trilogies and or duos, I guess you could say, duologies. If you donate a certain amount during the live stream to help towards this cause, you'll be able to choose which novel you'd like for us to mail to you. And if you donate, there's going to be a higher amount, and I'll set the amounts later. But if you donate for the higher amount, you'll get to choose from the trilogies, like the Aftermath trilogy. That's going to be one. If you guys donate a certain amount, you'll be able to choose between, the Aftermath trilogy, the Thrawn trilogy, something like that. You know what I mean? And we'll ship those to you as a thank you for your donation. And every single penny of that is going to go towards raising awareness for veteran suicide. None of that is staying here. Every single penny of it will be going out for that cause. So that is on November 11th, which happens to be Veterans Day in the U.S. So it's something that I really hope you guys join me for and come hang out with me for 24 hours. It's going to be fun. It's going to be hard. I know it is. And I'm not even sure YouTube allows a 24-hour stream. So we'll probably stream for 3 hours, take a 10-minute break, stream for 3 hours or 4 hours, whatever, take a 10-minute break. You know what I'm saying? So, and we'll go for the full 24. We'll probably start about 7 p.m., go all night, and then go all day. That way, when I'm done at 7 p.m. the next day, I can just crash out and go to sleep and recover from it. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun, and I really hope you guys join me for that. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up before we get into the Queen's Trilogy, I keep getting emails asking about whatever happened to the Star Wars Canon Library mobile app. The Star Wars Canon Library mobile app was a pet project that, or I should say a passion project that I had put together, Usef, maybe 2 years ago, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. So that was when it was at its almost peak. And then last year we almost got everything all together, and then there was
and then we had some fallout.
The event.
Yeah, the event. Yeah. So what happened with the mobile app? We got it up and running. I thought it was an awesome app. Of course, I designed it and I made it, so of course I'm going to think it's awesome. But I thought it was a great one-stop hub.
Yeah, but it was awesome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I thought it was pretty cool. I was trying to make it something that I knew that if I hadn't come up with it, if somebody else had come up with it, I was trying to make an app that I would be like, oh, hell yeah, this is awesome. Like, this is an absolute essential for a Star Wars fan. You could find every canon piece, every novel on there, links to where to purchase. I mean, the timeline, everything was on there. And so we had it running for, I think, 6 months, something like that, sending out push notifications every time a new piece of canon was released, and was having a blast with it, keeping it updated. And you could listen to this podcast on it. I mean, it was absolutely awesome. I thought so anyway. And so about 4 months into it, I actually received a cease and desist letter from Disney and Lucasfilm concerning the mobile app, and they wanted it completely shut down. They wanted all the code for it destroyed. They wanted every asset destroyed on it. And so I sat back for, the first 3 or 4 days bummed, because I'd worked so hard and so long on making this thing. And I was like,
that was definitely not the response we wanted to hear.
And that's not what I wanted to hear. Yeah. And so I really picked apart the cease and desist letter and spoke to a lawyer, and they said, are you making any money off it? And I said, no. And they said, then there's not really anything that they can do about it if you're not making any money off of it. So I wrote them a letter back and I fought it, and I told them, look, I'm not making a penny off of this. There's no reason that you guys need to be doing this. This is something that you should be doing, if you have this massive universe. And so until you decide to do it, I'm going to continue my mission of trying to keep all this put together for everybody. And I got a letter back from them, basically them dropping it, because they realized that I wasn't making any money off it. I wasn't making a penny off of it at all. If anything, I was just I was hemorrhaging money into it. And that was the problem, was that I was putting so much money into it, I just could not afford to keep it going. So a couple of months later, I went to make my quarterly payment to keep it going, and they had risen their prices like 45% to keep it going, and I couldn't afford it. And so I ended up having to pull it from the marketplace and pulled it down. So that is what happened with that mobile app. And so I put out a message on Kickstart, because it was a Kickstarter funded project. You guys donated, you guys helped get this thing off the ground, and I was so appreciative of that. And so I put a notice out on Kickstarter. If you guys wanted your funding back, I would more than willing give that back. I had no problem refunding that. I wasn't trying out to screw anybody over. But if you guys wanted me to hold on to your donation, I was going to put it into a website, and that's where 1138productions.com has come from now. So basically, it has evolved from a mobile app into a website that you can still use as a mobile app on your mobile device. All you do is save the website to your homepage, and it actually works as a mobile app. It's the same basic thing, but now we have a little more control over what it looks like, what it can do, everything like that. So That is why I push 1138productions.com as much as I do, because that is basically what the mobile app turned into. So that is the story behind the mobile app, and it basically came down to funding. It really did, and it's just something that was very, very hard to keep going. And so that's what happened with it. So I hope that answers everybody's questions about what happened with it. And like I said, I still get emails to this day asking whatever happened to it, and some people never found it, you know. And just about the time it died, we were really starting to take off on downloads, and I was like, man. And the coolest part, Usef, was not getting feedback on it, but like I would be messing around on TikTok, and I would come across a TikToker that, you know, keeps track of Star Wars stuff, and I saw a comment one time that said, "Oh yeah, no, I always use the Star Wars Canon Library mobile app because it." And that made my heart like warm. Like I was just like, "Oh my god, that's so cool!" And somebody else had replied to it, yeah, that mobile app is awesome.
Probably
and
made
I'm
you
like,
sing too.
and I was like, "Oh man, that's so cool." And so when it died, I was like, "Oh man, that was a real kick in the knackers." And you know, and so since then, and when I took it down, not only did they take it down, but they completely deleted it. So that it wasn't even like I could download the assets, re-download the assets, and keep everything. They completely scrapped it. So it literally no longer exists as it was. Like the coding is gone. Literally everything is gone. So, but that's kind of what happened with it. It breaks my heart to this day to think about because I really, really loved that mobile app. But now we've got 1138productions.com, and we have a lot more control over it. So I hope that answers everybody's questions concerning the mobile app. Usef, let's talk about some canon, man. Get all the housekeeping stuff out of the way. Let's talk about the stuff everybody has come to listen to. I just rambled for 15 minutes about stuff nobody probably even cares about. So let's talk about current and future canon. So earlier this summer, we have finally gotten the final book in the Queen's trilogy by E.K. Johnston, a book by the name of Queen's Hope. This is the third book in the trilogy and kind of rounded out Padme's, I shouldn't even say Padme's story arc. It was more of a Sabe story. Did you ever?
Oh, really?
Did you ever read any of these Queen's books at all?
No, not yet. So the thing is that I was waiting until I finished off this era and then get into the groove for Padme. So I haven't taken any proper novels for actual, the Queen and Padme and Amidala and stuff.
Right.
So I've never read anything standalone for her, but I was really excited to. My wife too. So she's obviously really, really big on heroines, and she absolutely loved Leia and Bloodline, reading it together.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing that together, just reading it and audiobooks sometimes, in part, sometimes audiobook and sometimes in the novel together.
Mm-hmm.
And it was bloody-tastic. It's fantastic. Bloodline, guys, seriously, I cannot rate that book highly enough. Seriously,
that's an amazing novel.
We were waiting. Yeah, firstly, we were waiting until all three novels were out for the Queen's trilogy. But also, we weren't going to want to read that until I had finished the first part of High Republic, so we can go back and finish those together.
Right.
But yeah, no, please speak completely freely about those, because it's really important for me to know.
Fair enough.
So, are we actually talking more about Sabe here?
Yeah, so the Queen's trilogy, in my opinion, is more about Sabe than anybody else. Which, for those of you that don't know, that was Keira Knightley's character in Phantom Menace. Her main decoy that she was switching out with throughout Phantom Menace. And so the first book, Queen's Shadow, is referring to Sabe and kind of how these girls, worked with Padme as she was making the transition from queen into senator. And it was a big transition, going from, being the queen of a planet to, the senator of the same planet. It's a much different role that she had to step into, and her handmaiden's role changed as well because of her change. And so it wasn't so much, stepping into the feet of royalty, but they all had to learn basically how to be a senator to take over for her, in her absence. And it was a book that really focused on Padme and Sabe's relationship. and how close they were. Almost, it never really touches on. It never really, what's the word I'm looking for? It never really confirms anything. But for me, I kind of got the vibe that went up to an almost borderline a romantic relationship on Sabe's part. Almost that she had those kind of feelings for Padme. And like I said, it never really got to that point. It was something that I kind of sensed the undercurrents of a little bit. Maybe it wasn't even there at all. Maybe I'm just full of it. But I really liked Queen's Shadow a lot. And one of the gripes I had about the book, I really enjoyed the book, but the only gripe I really had about it was nothing really happened in it. It wasn't anything that there were no events that happened. Like, the book doesn't really have anything happen in it. It just focused mainly on their relationship through everyday life. You know what I mean? So I was really hoping Queen's Peril would kind of change that a little bit. And so when
what was Queen's Peril about?
So Queen's Peril is actually a prequel to the first one. It's actually it's Padme being elected as queen, and leading up to the events of episode 1. And then the whole second half of the book is episode 1 from her point of view. From her point of view and from Sabe's point of view. And Queen's Peril focused a lot on Captain Panaka finding all of these girls and hiring them as handmaidens and training them and looking for different abilities in each girl that, that they could bring to the table. One was a dressmaker, and one was really good at makeup, and one was really good with, making hair pieces and stuff, and figuring out a way, where they all still looked the same, where all of them could still pass as Padme, or, they could bring their abilities into, like, some of the things that I learned, like with Padme's dress, that big red dress that she had in episode 1, that main Queen Amidala dress that we saw. Apparently it had an escape hatch in the back where she could just pop out of it at a moment's notice and leave the dress standing there, and she had like a jumpsuit on underneath, she could run away. Like, it was stuff like that was really interesting to learn. But again, nothing really happened in the book that we didn't already know, I mean, everything was episode 1 basically. It was a very bridged version of episode 1. So I was really looking forward to Queen's Hope. I really still did enjoy Queen's Peril. I liked Queen's Shadow more, but I was really looking forward to Hope, which, going into it, I thought Queen's Hope was going to be her point of view through Revenge of the Sith, and that wasn't the case at all. It was actually her point of view. It picks up the day her and Anakin get married, on their wedding day, and then kind of leads up to like the first week and a half, 2 weeks, I think, after that. But again, nothing really happened in it. And don't get me wrong, it was, for some reason,
Is it more of like an emotional interpretation of it?
Yes, that's a good way to say it, because I still really enjoyed the books, even though nothing happened in them. I don't know, I can't explain it, because I really liked reading them. In Queen's Hope, the biggest thing, I'm like, yes, something's going to happen in this one. Sabe gets called in from the Outer Rim to take over for Padme because there's somebody in the Trade Federation that wants to meet with Padme. And so she can't get away from the Senate long enough to meet with somebody, especially with the war kicking off and everything like that. And so Sabe comes in and takes over her role while Padme goes to do this mission. And you're like, yeah, she's going to meet with some high-ranking official. They're going to hammer out a bunch of details. This is going to be really great. And then the meeting takes place in a closet. And you're like, and then it's over. And you're like, wait, what? So, like, nothing really happened in it. But I have to say, out of all 3 books, Queen's Hope was my favorite. I really liked Queen's Hope, mainly because Anakin is a main character in this book. And Anakin and Padme's relationship is explored a lot more in this book. And there's even, I'm not going to ruin it for you, but there's a neat, the moment that Sabe finds out about Anakin, I laughed out loud. I actually laughed out loud reading because of the way it went down. Because apparently the word shit is now in Star Wars canon. The Dorme, when she finds out that Sabe knows, she's like, oh shit. Like, right in the book. And so I was cracking up because of, their interaction on when she basically said, I know about so and so. And she's like, oh, no. So it's really cool to kind of see that interaction a little bit. And we're introduced to a character that they were in one scene in Queen's Hope. but now they've kind of popped up a couple more times in Brotherhood. And that is a clone trooper that simply goes by the name Sister. And it is a female clone trooper. It's not a male clone trooper, it's a female clone trooper. So basically an older version of like what Omega would be from Bad Batch. It'd be an older version of her. And she is just wearing clone armor, fighting, and she's in Obi-Wan and Anakin's battalion. And so it's really, like, they're opening all these doors to these new possibilities for characters. That's really cool. But as far as Queen's Trilogy goes, I really enjoyed Queen's Hope. And like I said, nothing really happens in the books, but they're great reads. I don't know how to describe that. I don't know how to explain how that... you'd almost have to read them to understand what I'm saying. Usef, I'm really looking forward to you reading them, to hear your opinion, because I've heard several people say, yeah, nothing ever happens in these books, but I still enjoy them. So, what are you hoping to get out of the Queen's Trilogy for you personally?
So initially, I was hoping to get some events, just like everybody else was.
Right.
After hearing what you just had to say, I'm hoping to get a good time out of reading it.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. And I think you're in for
so
that.
I'm hoping to enjoy the process rather than look for something within the books. I'm looking to enjoy the process.
Yes.
So if I was going to read the novelizations of episode 1, 2, 3, this not only supplements it, but it also adds a lot of color to it. This is the impression I'm getting.
Yes. And a lot of it's from Padme's point of view.
Exactly. Which is
actually,
the primary point of it being the Queen's Trilogy.
Right? And actually, Queen's Peril, I guess I shouldn't say that it's just an abridged version of episode 1. I shouldn't say that, because Rabe is back on Naboo, and it kind of shows what they're all dealing with on Naboo while Padme's on Coruscant. And so it's, and kind of the horrors, she's tortured, she's scarred, she's interrogated, and she won't give up anything. So she's got these scars. But like, so I shouldn't say it's an abridged version. I should not say that. But they're enjoyable reads. Honestly, if you're going into this trilogy, just look to have a good time. Like you said, Usef, just look for enjoying it, because there's not a lot of Padme material out there. She kind of popped up in Thrawn Alliances a little bit for all the flashback chapters, and then this is basically it. You know what I mean? With these 3 books, that's about all the Padme stuff there is. So yeah, if you're reading the novelizations of 1, 2, and 3, I would almost read Queen's Peril first, which is the second book. I would read Queen's Peril, then episode 1, and then Queen's Shadow, and then episode 2, and then Queen's Hope, and then episode 3. That's kind of the order I would do. Queen's novel, and then an episode. Queen's novel, then an episode. So yeah, they really do supplement very well. There was one retcon, and we'll talk about retcons here in a little bit on a mailbag question. But there was one retcon in the book, and I don't think it was a retcon. I think it was just an editor's mistake. I don't think they realized what they were doing when they made this mistake. But on the day of Anakin and Padme's wedding, it says that 3PO walks in his new golden plates, his new shining golden plates, and I'm like, but wait a second. And I went back and looked at episode 2, and he's still in his like sandblasted plates in the movie. So
exactly.
There was that one little discrepancy.
Is that the only thing?
Yeah, and that's the only thing that I could see.
Okay. All right.
But since we've just finished Queen's Trilogy, let's talk about Brotherhood for a second, because Brotherhood is a novel. Like I said, I'm 3/4 of the way through it, but where that novel picks up,
Brotherhood.
Where that novel picks up, it is literally butt up to butt to Queen's Hope. Queen's Hope and Brotherhood are almost one novel. They pick up at the exact moment. There are even references in Brotherhood to to what happens in Queen's Hope. I mean, direct references. And then Sister pops back up in this one. So you can literally read Queen's Hope, which I did. I read Queen's Hope and then Brotherhood back to back, and they literally just blend right into each other.
That is perfect.
So it's basically one book. Yeah. So like Queen's Hope, it's basically Padme and Sabe with some Anakin. And then when you get into Brotherhood, it literally picks up at that moment that Queen's Hope ends, and then it's from Anakin and Obi-Wan's point of view. So it really just it still feels like 2 novels, but it's one massive. I mean, there's nothing in between them. They're right up smack dab against each other. And as far as Brotherhood goes, I'm like 3/4 of the way through it. I am loving this book. I am absolutely adoring this book. I wasn't sure how I was going to like it, but yes, this is a great read so far. And you get to see a lot more of Cato Nemoidia. Let me start off by saying this. You guys remember in episode 3 when Obi-Wan and Anakin are kind of bickering toward the beginning, and Obi-Wan says, "Go have your glorious day with the politicians," and Anakin says, "All right, fine, but you owe me one, and not for saving your skin for the 10th time." And Obi-Wan replies with, "9th time. That business on Cato Nemoidia doesn't count." This is that story. This is the story of what happened on Cato Nemoidia. Basically, no spoilers, because there's some spoilers in this book. I'm not gonna lie. So basically, there's a terrorist attack on Cato Nemoidia, which the planet is remaining neutral, even though the Trade Federation, there's a splinter cell of the Trade Federation that is with the Separatists. The Trade Federation itself is not, and so Cato Nemoidia is kind of trying to remain neutral, and all fingers point towards the Republic doing this bombing. And we're only 2 weeks into the Clone Wars at this point. And so Dooku starts manipulating the situation and starts bending Cato Nemoidia's ears a little bit and blames the Republic. And the Republic decides to send an envoy, Obi-Wan, to investigate to see what actually happened. Shenanigans ensue. Obi-Wan gets into some trouble. Hence, Anakin's, referring to it as him saving Obi-Wan's skin. But it's a really great read so far. It's a cool character dynamic between Obi-Wan and Anakin, because now Anakin has been freshly knighted. Padme's in the beginning of this book a little bit. Matter of fact, you remember, Usef, you remember in the old Cartoon Network, I don't know if you ever saw it, the old Cartoon Network Clone Wars series, the 2D?
Yeah, I saw some of it. Yeah.
There was one short where Anakin gave Padme his Padawan braid, or where 3PO came in and delivered it to her.
Right.
That scene... Right. There's a scene like that in canon now, but Anakin actually physically gives it to her as a pendant, and it's frozen in carbonite. He freezes his Padawan braid in carbonite and gives it to her as a pendant to wear. And so, it's really cool to see him and Padme's, interactions and stuff, and kind of how they sneak off once in a while to have a date night, where nobody knows who they are. But it really focuses on, with Anakin being freshly knighted and Obi-Wan and Anakin both trying to learn that new dynamic, because it's no longer master and apprentice. It is now their peers. You know what I'm saying? They're both at the same level, and they're both trying to learn how to operate. And so it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's a really cool dynamic. And there's something going on with a youngling in this book that is really cool. I'm not going to tell you what happens with her, but I'll tell you the problem she's having. There's this one youngling. She's a Zabrak. She's getting ready to go to the Gathering. They're getting ready to go to Ilum to get their Kyber crystals. And this girl, she doesn't like violence at all. She hates violence. She abhors violence. She doesn't even want a lightsaber because it's a weapon. She sees lightsabers as weapons of war at this point, and she doesn't even want one. She just wants to use the Force and her Jedi abilities to help people. That's all she wants to do, is just help. And so the Force is so strong with this girl that it's just blinding her. She can't. It's overload, and so she's actively trying to cut herself off from the Force. And so she's got this problem, and she's with Anakin for a lot of the time throughout this book. And you know how Anakin is with younglings. No joke intended. I'm not talking about episode 3. Like, Anakin's not great with younglings, right? Like, he's not good with the whole teaching thing or whatever.
Yeah, he's really blunt. He's not very understanding. He's like, just do this. He's like, that's it.
Right. And so there's a cool dynamic there also. But there's this youngling that has this problem, and I thought that was a very interesting choice for a subplot going on with everything else going, and it was very interesting. And this is her name is Mill Ali Beth, I think is how you pronounce her name. But it's a very interesting character. So Brotherhood, I'm really enjoying so far. I've only got like 2 hours left in the book. I'm hoping to finish it tonight and tomorrow. And then after that, I'm going to be getting into Stories of the Jedi and Sith, and then Shadow of the Sith. So Shadow of the Sith is one I'm really looking forward to. I'm hearing good things about it. It is out now. I think it came out at the end of last month. So it's out now, which it's a Luke and Lando story, if I'm not mistaken. It's the whole story of what Lando was talking about in Episode 9 with, them looking for Ochi of Bastoon, the Jedi Hunter. So I'm looking forward to that one. And then we have a new novel out, Padawan, which is another Obi-Wan novel. Usef, I know you really love Obi-Wan Kenobi. Padawan, is that one you're really looking forward to?
Absolutely. Obi-Wan Kenobi is, it's really difficult with Star Wars, with the variety of characters and just what they mean to us. Every single one of them hits home in a different way. Many of them can hit at the same time. Obi-Wan is genuinely, and I'm not just saying this because Obi-Wan Kenobi show came out recently. Seriously, Obi-Wan has been my favorite character for a long time. He's my favorite Jedi. I connect with him so much. His journey, the feeling. So for me, Star Wars really does revolve a lot around Anakin and Vader, the whole journey there, because it's just an amazing journey, and the fall from grace and the brilliance behind the struggle and the internal struggle behind it, it is just massive. But at the center of it isn't just Anakin. There's Anakin, there's Obi-Wan, there's Padme, there's even, you can argue, Yoda and a bunch of other characters. But yeah, so Obi-Wan for me and his role in that is just, it is the way it hits home is just divine. So for me to see more Obi-Wan novels, bring me some more of that. You know what I mean? So my favorite, an amazing novel which really hit home, even though it was slow at first. So it was exactly as you mentioned in your novel review, in Master and Apprentice. So when Obi-Wan was the apprentice and Qui-Gon was the master, and what we saw there, it was brilliant. And the novel was just diplomatic enough, the writing was just diplomatic enough to show us Qui-Gon's view of him being upset that he couldn't satisfy Obi-Wan's thirst for knowledge.
Right.
And then Obi-Wan himself being desperate to prove himself to this new master and so on. So I'm really, really excited to see how Padawan goes, because that's set even earlier, right?
I think it's after that. I could be wrong.
Isn't after that the setting for Episode 1?
I'm gonna have to go back and look. You might be right. I think it might be before, actually. Now that you're saying that, I think it may be.
I thought initially.
You might be right about that. I might have to go back and double check that, but I think you're right.
If I win, you owe me a beer.
That's fair. We can do that. Absolutely. But yeah, I think you are right.
Though.
We're gonna have to make that happen.
Yeah, in person. So no PayPal shit.
That's gonna be an expensive beer. Yeah. No, I think you're right though. It's I think it is before. I'm really looking forward to reading it. I don't know what to expect out of it. I've heard good reviews on it so far, but I don't know what to expect out of it, because even in Brotherhood, with Obi-Wan doing his mission to Caden Nemoidia, there's been some mentions. There was an excerpt that was released for the book before it came out, where he goes and sees Dex at Dex's diner again. And that scene, there's some mention
so cool.
of Satine on Mandalore. There's some mentions of that, and of her. And so, like, even in Brotherhood, I know we were talking about Padawan, but even in Brotherhood, Obi-Wan kind of has a little bit of a suspicion. His suspicion is starting to we knew Obi-Wan always knew about Anakin and Padme, right? But this is where it starts. Yeah, this is where he's like, wait a second, is there something going on there? And when he thinks about it, then he thinks back to Satine, and he's like, oh, okay, well, that's the thought for a different time. And he just completely forgets about all of it, and he's just like, whatever.
I think I always assumed this was just an assumption for me, just being, just someone who watches the films and reads a little bit. I never read 99% of the comics, because I just love novels more than I love graphic novels.
Right.
But I just always assumed that Obi-Wan picked up on it in Episode 2 when Anakin was just adamant on going back and saving Padme when they were chasing after Dooku. and then
Right.
her ship fell down. He was like, "We gotta go back for her." And then Anakin goes, "Sorry, excuse me." And then Obi-Wan Kenobi goes, "Come to your senses.
Right.
What would she do if she was in your position?" And then Anakin goes, "She would finish the job. She would just finish the mission. Go on."
Right.
You know, and that was such a cool master moment. But I
So
figured he freaking understood. Like, it wasn't just him trying to protect her. This was a little bit more. Yeah.
well, so at this point, Obi-Wan always thought that was kind of one-sided. He didn't know if Padme returned Anakin's feelings. Anakin, there was no secret about how he felt about Padme. There was no secret. Obi-Wan could sense the emotions coming off Anakin. You know, I mean, they were so strong, and he could feel them in the Force. But he never
Right.
knew if it was, returned, on Padme's part.
Wow.
And so
that actually sounds
he
awesome.
always
Wow.
knew Anakin was infatuated with her, but he didn't know to what level it had it was. And so, like, when Brotherhood picks up, and they're already married at
Older
this point.
brother was worried about little
Yeah.
brother.
And so
Wow.
the first time Anakin and Padme come face to face in Brotherhood, which is shortly after the end of Queen's Hope, they come face to face in the Jedi Temple. They're Padme's there for a knighting ceremony, and Obi-Wan sees them from a distance interacting, and she reaches up and touches her hair where his Padawan braid would be. And he can't hear what they're saying, but he can see the emotions just pouring off of Anakin. And he even thinks to himself at one point, it's kind of interesting how Anakin is still so infatuated with her, and how cordial they are to each other now, considering that 2 weeks ago when Padme was being trying to be assassinated, how she was so cold and professional with him, and still saw him as a little boy, and and all this other stuff. And now all of a sudden they're being very cordial to each other, and they're smiling and they're laughing, and the emotions are rippling off Anakin and all this, and he's like, "Huh, I wonder." So it's interesting to see that that kind of happening, that kind of playing out finally.
I
And
love Obi-Wan's internal dialogue. It's just so cool, especially
he
when
has
it's
a
written
lot
in
of it.
novels.
He-
It's exactly.
There's a lot of it in Brotherhood. And there's a lot for
fantastic.
Anakin too.
Swear, it's fun, it's brainy, it's nice.
He's sassy.
It's sensitive, it's emotional, it's sassy.
It's sassy. Obi-Wan is the most
It's
sassy
everything.
Jedi.
Obi-Wan is so cool in novels. I swear, when you read more and more Star Wars novels, and then you read Obi-Wan in Star Wars novels, you say, "Really? This is Obi-Wan?"
Right? And what else is
You
cool
get
in
the
this
feeling
one?
that all the writers love Obi-Wan as well.
Oh,
just as
yeah.
much as I do, maybe even more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what else is cool about this book is, in the Clone Wars and in Episode 3, Obi-Wan is known as the negotiator. And he's an amazing negotiator. In this book, this is where it all starts. He has no idea what he's doing negotiating. And this is the first time where the whole galaxy is basically on the verge, is on this pendulum, and it's due to his negotiation skills. And so it's really cool seeing him kind of step into that role a little bit, and everything like that. So I'm really digging Brotherhood. I'm really looking forward to Padawan. The next novel coming out is actually one, and I'm not going to lie, I'm not entirely excited about this book. It's The Princess and the Scoundrel. And it's it's Leia and Han's wedding story, and I guess
Leia
their
and Han,
honeymoon.
yeah.
And look, I'm not knocking it. The book may turn out to be one of the greatest books ever written. It's not something that I'm like, oh man, I really want to see those two get married. I know what happens. I don't know if I need to see their honeymoon. And I'm worried that this book is going to turn into a commercial for the Halcyon Legacy cruise that Disney has, because it happens on that ship. That's the whole story happens on that ship. So I'm hoping it doesn't just turn into a novel billboard, kind of
See,
like
I didn't think it had a connection to anything like that.
Yeah.
I thought it was just something to be based on its own merit.
and the reason I'm
And-
worried about it, oh no, go ahead, buddy, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, not at all. I was just gonna say that I thought it was gonna stand on its own merit, and I was excited to see Han's interaction being potentially nervous. Something happened in the middle that might call the wedding off.
Oh, yeah.
Him and Lando and Chewie and stuff, and then Leia also, because Leia. I mean, in Bloodline and Leia, the novels, guys, if you haven't read it, you really have to. It's so good.
Oh, Bloodline's
Both
good,
of them
yeah.
are just really, really good. So you really should just understand that Leia written in novels is not the same Leia that we know in general. It adds so much depth to the character. So I was relatively excited to read this novel, not just because of Leia and the characters, but also because I wanted to hear and see her side of this, of experiencing the story. And I'm sure there's going to be a bit of action to it. You know, that's
hope.
what I thought.
I hope there is. The
But
only
I do
thing,
appreciate what you just said about it being potentially linked to that particular,
right?
you know, Disney event, because I didn't have that in mind at all. I know that was a possibility. So yeah,
The reason that gives me pause is because when Disney opened Galaxy's Edge and it was Batuu and Black Spire Outpost, like 7 novels in a row were Black Spire, Batuu, Black Spire, Batuu, Black Spire. And I was like, I get it. You guys have a park that is on Batuu and it has Black Spire Outpost. I get it. And then they came out with 5-issue comic run. I'm like, I get it. For the love of God, I get it. And then it was mentioned in Solo. I'm like, okay, oh my God, I get it. And so I'm hoping they're not about to do the same thing with the Halcyon thing, because they've already had the comic run like they did with Galaxy's Edge. Now there's a book coming out that's getting ready to be on the Halcyon, and I'm like, just tone it back a little bit. I get it. You know, you don't have to have an 8-hour long commercial for it. That's the only reason that gives me pause, is because they did it with Galaxy's Edge. I'm hoping they learned not to do that from what they did with Galaxy's Edge. We're gonna find out. So, Princess and the Scoundrel comes out later this month, and I believe it's Beth Revis writing it, who also did Rebel Rising, which I did enjoy Rebel Rising. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I'm hoping that it's not too awful bad. So that's basically everything I kind of wanted to talk about for upcoming new canon novels and everything like that. Oh, Andor. We haven't talked about Andor. I didn't have that on my notes. Have you seen the new trailer for Andor, Usef?
I have, and the one brilliant thing about it is just how amazing it looks. It doesn't feel. I know this is good with like graphics and modern stuff. It really is really important to say. It just feels really cool. It doesn't feel like it's going to be a TV show or a limited series or anything like that. It feels like it's going to be a movie. That's how it looks. That's how good quality. That's how deep it feels. I can't wait to see this like full on actual, you know, TV show for this, or like limited series, because I know it's going to be. My expectations is going to be like what, 8 episodes? What do you think?
Oh, it's 12. They've come out and said it's 12 episodes.
12.
It's 12 episodes, and we're getting the premiere is going to be the first 3 episodes. They're premiering the first 3 episodes on the first night.
It was going to be 3 episodes, and then we'd see 3 or 5 weeks later. And
right.
You know, after every episode each week, and that was that. Maybe 6, maybe 8 episodes.
Yeah, this is 12.
That's amazing. 12 episodes is perfect.
One of the things,
at least at first, right?
Oh yeah, we'll talk about Obi-Wan here in a little bit, because we have a mailbag question asking about our views on Obi-Wan. So we'll talk about it a little bit then. But one of the things I noticed with Obi-Wan, and I hate to say this. Don't lynch me, because I know people out there love Obi-Wan. I loved Obi-Wan. Don't get me wrong. I love the series. But there were times in that series where, you know, the camera work wasn't the greatest, and the quality kind of looked like it dipped a little bit. You know, some of it looked like a home movie. Some of it looked like a fan film. I'm not going to lie. Some of the camera shots did. Some of the cinematography did. Not all of it by any means.
No, we all felt that.
But there were, you know, the scene where Leia is... you know, on the interrogation bed, and the lights go out, and then Obi-Wan takes out the 2 stormtroopers. It just looked like it was on a soundstage with a live studio audience. You know, like it didn't look great to me. But when you look at Andor, everything in the trailer for Andor looks so polished, and it looks so great. I'm really looking forward to seeing the Imperial Senate, and to see that. Which, you know, the Emperor is going to have to be there, right? The Emperor's got to be there if we're having scenes in the Imperial Senate. Exactly. He's got to be on that on that pedestal. And at this point on the timeline, Mon Mothma has already announced herself as leader of the Rebel Alliance. So I'm interested to see how she's going to be treated within the Senate, how other senators are going to react to her, you know, because a lot of people view the Rebel Alliance as a terrorist group. So I'm really interested to see how that dynamic's going to go, and I really want to see this story play out. Saw Gerrera being back. He was in the trailer. Makes a lot of sense that he's there. But the show itself, just based off the trailer, it just looks more polished. Like you said, it looks like a film. It looks like this has got film quality written all over it. This doesn't look like a TV show at all. And this is the show. I think I've said it every time we've talked about Andor. This is one I think a lot of people are sleeping on, because I'm really looking forward to this series. I really want to see that gray area the Rebel Alliance works in. And I'm just 3 episodes for the first premiere. 12 episodes total for season 1. We already know we're getting a season 2 leading right up to the events of Rogue One. Very excited for it. So
I'm gonna tell you something really quick to add something to what you just said. My wife was, she's a fair enough fan of Star Wars. So she's not really in tune to everything. A lot of stuff passes over her head because not like because she doesn't love Star Wars, but because she's not as into it as I am. So she really appreciates what I love about it, like the core stuff and like why I love the villains and stuff. But she never actually considered Star Wars being an actual story about stuff like freedom, like rebels, like the Empire.
mm-hmm.
She always figured like, oh yeah, sure, a big bad baddie, whatever.
Flashy lightsaber battles and
exactly, like
yeah.
pew pew, this and that, and
right.
Things like that. She was like, oh, that's what you like about it, right?
It's a lot deeper than that, yeah.
Oh God, she eventually, with every passing, with every bit that she sees me watch, she understands much more than that. And she already saw, like, so when we were watching Obi-Wan Kenobi together, she understood. She understood. Like, yeah, I know this is what you love most about it, like the Anakin and Kenobi, and I know this is what you love most. Okay, cool. And then when she saw me play through Lego Star Wars, and she saw all these like little side quests, and I started explaining, and then she saw me replay. So in the middle of Lego Star Wars, all of a sudden I just did like a little replay through of Jedi Fallen Order with Kestis. So just because I love that game, it's fantastic. And then she said, "Oh, I didn't see this sort of depth in that struggle when there was Order 66 and all that."
Right.
And then she started reading in again with me when we were reading through Leia and Bloodline about the rebellion and the building and the politics behind it of like the New Republic and the building of the New Republic and the politicians and everything. And she was almost speechless. She was like, "Really? I never knew this was all in here." I said, "Well, what did you think there was? It was just lightsabers and pew." She was like, "Yeah, that's what I thought it was. I thought you were just looking at the emotional stuff behind the guys fighting, not what they're actually fighting for." See, that little comment there, that's really important for me to make sure that everybody's going to see a lot more just because of Andor. And I'm pretty sure that Lucasfilm knows this as well. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah,
That's
absolutely.
why this is really important. So whatever Rogue One didn't show people already, which, by the way, a lot of people saw, but they're going to see a lot more of it now. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Because Rogue One is perfect for this. Rogue One is perfect for actually understanding the rebels, the actual theme behind it, the heroic missions, the self-sacrifice, the non-famous characters that are fighting for hope. And then you just get Andor, and it's going to be fantastic in my opinion. I hope so. I really, really think so, and I really want it to be so, but I genuinely predict that it will be so. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and not only
will be so exciting and worth it. Yeah, is what I meant.
And not only does it focus on these like you said, these heroic stories and everything like that, but it also adds a whole new layer to what was already there before. Because when you think about the opening crawl for the original Star Wars, it says the evil Galactic Empire. It says right off the bat the Galactic Empire is evil. So in your head you've got Empire bad, Rebels good, right? And then when you watch something like Rogue One and you find out that there's this gray area where the Rebels, like to, or not really like, I don't know, maybe they do like to, but they stick their fingers into the cookie jar a little bit. And then you've got Imperials who are defecting left and right that we never knew about, or, they're humanizing the Empire now. The Empire is not just a bunch of evil people. there's regular, normal, everyday people working for the Empire who can see what the Empire's doing and is not okay with it. You know, so it's not just cut and dry evil good anymore. Now it's like it's two sides, but like you said, it's putting a realistic spin on it to where this is exactly what would happen in a political atmosphere like that, or in an atmosphere of war, you know? And so it's adding these other layers to it as well. And yeah, Rogue One did a great job at that. Rogue One is like the gold standard for Star Wars film as far as I'm concerned from Disney. That, to me, that's the gold standard. I loved Rogue One.
Do you think that we're going to get Andor is going to be basically this gold standard for Star Wars films, just in a limited series? Like, this is going to be the same feel,
I'm of a
same
mindset,
stuff,
yes,
same-
I hope so, because I'm of a mindset that every single new piece of canon that comes out is the new gold standard. I just, because I want to see everything just keep getting better and better and better and better. I know eventually we're going to peak, and you can't get any better. I get that. But I really, really hope that everything is always the gold standard. I hope everything just keeps getting better and better. I hope novels get dethroned every year on #1. I would love to see Lost Stars get knocked down, because that means we have a badass Star Wars novel out. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I really hope that this is the new. I hope it's the gold standard. I hope when Andor comes out. Look, because right
Yeah, I
now
completely agree.
Mandalorian is the gold standard for TV right now. For Star Wars TV, Mandalorian is the gold standard. I'm hoping Andor comes along and just dethrones it. I really hope it does. Joan, don't get me wrong. I love the Mandalorian, but
Same.
because one of the things that's interesting, and I just found this out yesterday, Andor is not shot on that soundstage that Mando is. They actually went to locations everywhere to film Andor. Mando is filmed on that volume soundstage. Andor is not. And so I think that's why it's adding this tangibility to it, and it's really giving it that higher quality look, because I absolutely adored that trailer for Andor. I liked the first one, but I adored this second trailer. They really focused a lot more on Mon Mothma and everything like that, but it just looked better. You know what I mean? Like, the trailer itself looked better than some of the stuff that's come before.
I absolutely completely know what you mean.
So,
But I just want to know, like, so do you mean, like, with it being produced differently, so this is supposed to add a sort of dimension or a feel to it, or is it purely a quality-based decision from
it
Lucasfilm?
could be both. It very well could be both, because
Oh, okay.
well,
Right.
and you know, the Tony Gilroy, who wrote Rogue One, wrote this series, and so it's the same
Right.
writer. Everything looks, shooting on location just adds that kind of tangibility to it. It makes it feel more real, and actually when you
Right.
actually have a setting that you're in. But I don't know if that's going to have any maybe it'll come out and be the worst series ever. I don't know. But so far, just from what I've seen, it looks better. The story is still very ambiguous. Like, nobody has no idea what it's about yet. All we know is that eventually it will lead into Rogue One. And so, yeah, this looks like it's going to be a hell of a project. And so far, I'm very impressed with everything I've seen for it. So time will tell, though. I'm really excited for September now, for that to come around and watch the first 3 episodes and to really dive in, because this is a series I really love, that gritty side of Star Wars, and that's what we're going to get on this, and I'm really looking forward to it. As a former soldier, as a former U.S. Army soldier, I'm really, really looking forward to this series. So, anything else you want to add on Andor before we move on?
No, you covered it. I mean, honestly, there was not a better note you could have ended on. Like, that was just how emotional it was. Even just being from background of someone who's actually been in the fucking thick of it. Like, I can't imagine how. Hopefully, this is gonna be. Do you think this is gonna be potentially relatable?
Oh, I think so. Rogue One was,
Yeah.
because for me,
Rogue One was.
So,
Right.
like, for me personally, right?
Okay.
There was.
I don't mean to dive too
No,
deep.
you're
Like,
fine.
if you don't wanna-
So when I watched Rogue One, I had a bit of a revelation, and that revelation was, I'm trying to think of how I want to say this. So bear with me for a second. Watching Rogue One for the first time.
No, you're good. I was stuttering like hell at first, so you can take it.
Oh no, you're good. Watching Rogue One for the first time, when they're on Jeddah, and you see the Empire coming through with their tanks and the soldiers walking through, the marketplace, and then they're being attacked, right, by the locals who don't want the Empire there, right? When I think back to when I was in the Army, I was the fucking Empire. I was in those stormtrooper suits. You know what I'm saying? Like when I compare it, when I can relate to it, that's what I was, you know, and seeing it play out that way was kind of a revelation for me and something that I could relate to because I felt like I'd been in that same kind of situation. You know, it's just, and I'm trying not to get too political here because that's one thing I don't like to do on the show is get political. But it's something that kind of made me look at things in a different light. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's really heavy though.
And so yeah, Rogue One was very relatable for me, and I'm really hoping that Andor is as well. So, yeah, I didn't mean to get heavy. I'm sorry, but yeah, it's something that.
No. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that in a sort of bad way. I just meant
I know
like
that.
deep. Like wow. I mean, that felt really fucking genuine. Sorry.
But yeah, no, it was interesting. So, and it was very relatable, and I'm hoping we get that out of Andor also. So, like I said, time will tell. Though we'll find out about this time in September. All right, buddy, let's move on because we have got a villain bracket to do. We haven't done a villain bracket in a while. So for those of you that don't know, before we took our hiatus, Usef had this awesome idea to sit down and start doing brackets for villains. Usef, would you like to kind of explain what we're doing here with this bracket? And
thank you for the props.
What we're doing?
Actually, why don't you do it this time? So every time I'm on, I introduce it. So why don't you do it?
Fair enough. So Usef, this is Usef's baby. Usef is a huge fan of villains. He loves villains. They're an integral part of any story. You can't really have a story without a villain. And so Star Wars is full of villains, you know, and you don't necessarily have to be maybe a bad guy to be a villain in somebody's story, but there's a lot of villains. And so Usef sat down and came up with a huge list of assholes, basically, in Star Wars. And he sorted them out into different categories. And we started at the bottom with general assholes, just people who really didn't fall into any other category, but we were pitting them against each other. And we have several winners from that bracket. And now we are on the final bracket for the bounty hunters. And before our hiatus, the fight for that week was IG-88 up against Forlom. And y'all spoke. You guys voted on our YouTube channel. You voted on our Facebook page. You voted on our Twitter account. And you also voted on Spotify, if you guys are listening to this on Spotify. You voted there as well. And IG-88 beat out Forlom in a landslide, which I kind of saw coming. I would have voted IG-88 as well. But yeah, that's kind of where that went. So IG-88 will be moving on later on to another bracket we're going to figure out later on down the road. This week, however, we have got our final duo. And we've only got 2 choices left for the bounty hunters, and so we don't even have to spin the wheel. So we already know who it's going to be. It's going to be Cad Bane versus Bosk. Cad Bane versus Bosk is our final duo. So you guys get to choose. This isn't who would win in a fight. This is who is cooler. This is who is the cooler character. So you guys get to vote. Head on over to our YouTube channel. If you're not already listening to us there, if you're listening on Spotify, scroll on down. You'll be able to see the poll there as well. Head over to our Twitter account or over to our Facebook page. The links of all of those will be in the description of this podcast. And you guys can vote on who you think is cooler, Cad Bane or Bosk. And the results will be read on next week's episode. And we will move on to the next category, I do believe. So, Usef, if you had to vote for one of these guys, Cad Bane or Bosk, who are you casting your vote for?
It's really, really interesting because actually, so I know it's easy. Let me just get this out of the way. It's really easy to vote for Cad Bane.
Oh, right? Yeah, it is. Yes, it is. It's very easy.
It is really easy to vote for Cad Bane. If y'all don't know who Bosk is, I recommend you Google him. As soon as you Google him, just take out the image. You'll recognize him instantly. Okay? He is the reptilian character. He looks like, okay, if you played Skyrim, he looks like he's an Argonian. So he's like a lizard creature sort of thing. The name of his species or whatever gender something.
Trandoshans.
Trandoshan.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
A Trandoshan. So this kind of this kind of character is super cool because so Trandoshans, just like sort of Argonians or whatever reptilian sort of species in different fantasy lore might have, they have really cool hunting instincts. They're amazing at being bounty hunters. So basically, he was born to be one. He was born to be one. You know, if you've ever thought about yourself in this, like if you've played some sort of Dungeons and Dragons, D&D sort of thing with Star Wars theme, and you wanted an instinctual character for a bounty hunter, it would be a Trandoshan. It would be Bosk. He's got sort of the red eye reptilian sort of feel to him. He's got a shitload of weapons. He's very adept, not just at hunting, but at stalking. So difference between the two. So if you're an amazing hunter, you could be rash. He is an amazing stalker. He's patient. So I had this thing, right? So even my granddad, before he passed, like he told me this thing, you know, in order to get what you're owed in this life, even if you're hunting for it, you got to be patient. You got to wait. Even the lion crawls to make sure he catches that gazelle, sort of thing. He's a freaking lion. He's powerful enough to take it down, but he crawls, he stalks, sort of thing. That's the thing. That's what he's good at. You know, he's so good at having the patience, to being a bit of a strategist. Cad Bane is more cool. And I know that we just said literally who's cooler. But listen, Cad Bane is more like a gunslinger. Cad Bane is more like a long coat, sort of draped, you know, cool voice sort of thing. Trandoshan looks kind of gross, but listen, he's the physical being of being a bounty hunter. Do you know what I mean, Brian? Like, am I right on this?
I feel like I know who you're gonna vote for. I have this feeling.
I know I didn't answer your question, but
yeah. But no, I see where you're coming from. You know, Trandoshans, and they can regenerate their limbs, you know, if they lose one. But yeah, Trandoshans are very cool species. And actually, fun trivia fact, Bosk in the original in The Empire Strikes Back is
give me something about Bosk in the comics that I haven't read.
I'll tell you something right here. He's actually wearing an old Doctor Who extra outfit.
Wait, what?
They recycled, the yellow outfit. If you go and look, you just a simple Google search. If you just go on and type in Bosk Doctor Who, you're gonna see that there was a character on one of the original Doctor Who shows
I see it right
that is
now.
wearing the exact same outfit. They recycled it for The Empire Strikes Back. So, that's a nice little trivia there for Bosk. But he still looks badass. He still looks awesome.
He does. He's absolutely cool.
And we've gotten a lot more Bosk stuff lately. You know, whether it be Clone Wars or we've been seeing more Trandoshans.
One of the things that makes him amazingly cool is that he was in the original trilogy. Like the fact that he's old school. He's not new creator.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that new creator is lame. It just means that he's even cooler. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, because some people out there love Lucas creations, and he is a Lucas creation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Cad Bane is still a Lucas creation as well. He was introduced in Clone Wars, which was George Lucas's baby. But
absolutely.
Well,
absolutely.
I shouldn't say George
but
Lucas's baby,
on.
but he had input. Yeah. But yeah, he's Bosk is classic.
Which he had wasn't necessarily in the first take or the first sense or the original sense.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean he's bad. It just means that it has its own depth to it.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, they're both awesome. Personally, I know you just poured your heart and soul into Bosk, but I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I have to follow my heart on this one. I think I'm going to vote Cad Bane.
Good old red eyes.
I'm sorry, man. I can't. Cad Bane is so cool.
Don't be sorry, man. You can do whatever you like.
I know.
I'm saying that Bosk. I know that I have a tendency to go for the path not followed often or whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure.
Oh yeah.
What the saying is like I tend to be like a bit of a hipster there, but I mean I just mean like no offense taken. No offense.
No. I didn't figure.
But yeah, no. I just mean like I just love these underappreciated characters a lot.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like Bosk has a lot more to offer than people think he does.
You're not wrong. You're
not
wrong.
And he's so instinctual, and I love instinctual characters.
And I loved him.
I don't know. It's like weird. Like I just love it.
I loved him in Clone Wars, and I really loved him in the Dark Disciple novel. He was in the Dark Disciple novel also. Really liked him in that one too. So Bosk is getting some love, man, and I love it. He's actually cool, even though it's well before his appearance in The Empire Strikes Back chronologically. Still love it, you know. And he even got a mention in Solo. Because Beckett's I can't. Oh my God, you guys are gonna scream at me right now because I don't remember her name. Beckett's female partner, she was like, why didn't you hire somebody else like Bosk? Somebody dependable, and so he got a mention in there also. It's kind of nice. So guys, make sure to go vote for who you think is cooler. We will read the results on the next episode of the Star Wars Canon Podcast. And I'm really looking forward to see who's going to win this one, because Cad Bane is freaking awesome. But you're right. There's a lot of people out there that really like Bosk also. So this one's going to be a toss-up for as far as I'm concerned. I'm looking forward to it.
Wait, it wasn't Kira that mentioned Bosk, was it?
No, it wasn't Kira. It was, I cannot remember her
it?
name. It was, I hate myself right now for not knowing this. It wasn't Kira. It was in Beckett's original crew. I cannot remember oh my God.
All right, never mind.
You guys are screaming at me right now. I can hear it.
We'll figure it out.
I sense the.
How about this? I'll try to Google it if I can while we're.
I'm Googling it right now because it's gonna bother me. I can hear people screaming at me through the Force.
Aura Singh?
Right now. No, it wasn't Aura Singh.
No. Oh no. God, no, it wasn't Aura Singh.
I cannot remember for the life of me what her name was, and I hate myself so much. Val. Her name was Val. I could not remember for the life. Oh my God, you guys! I don't blame you at all if you just shut the podcast off right now and never listen again. I don't blame you, because I should have known that. God, I just had a mini stroke. So Val, yeah, no, she mentioned Bosk.
Yes.
God, I hate myself so much. I need to go watch.
No,
I need to go do some. I need to go pour myself into some Star Wars stuff as a punishment. All right.
Big full head of hair.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. So yeah, I can't believe I couldn't remember her name. All right, mailbag questions. We've got 3 of them picked out. How do you guys get a question on the Star Wars Canon Podcast? It's easy. You simply email it to us at starwarscanonpodcast@gmail.com. Or you can visit us at 1138productions.com/contact to send us a message from there. We'll go through and pick out a few each week. We've got 3 really great questions we're going to address this week, having to do with canon. I'm really looking forward to these particular questions. So let's just jump right into them, shall we? Question number 1 this week comes from James Onero. Now, please forgive me, James, if I'm butchering your last name. I am no good with names. It took me like 3 months to figure out how to pronounce Usef's name. I'm so bad with names, and I apologize. It's nothing personal. I'm just really bad at it. So our first question this week comes from James Onero. And James writes in and says, hello there, Star Wars Canon Podcast. Longtime listener, first-time questioner. I'm hoping to hear your thoughts on the finale of Obi-Wan and the series overall. Do you want a season 2? And do you think the series was handled well enough to warrant a second outing for Ben? Thank you for being a beacon of positivity and a fandom that sorely needs it. Thanks for the kind words, James, and thanks for sending in the question. First off, before we start talking about Kenobi, I was going to tell you, Usef, there is a nice little Easter egg in Brotherhood. We now know where Obi-Wan got the name Ben. Satine actually came up with the name Ben for Obi-Wan.
No.
Yeah.
That makes it even.
Yeah, and so he goes by Ben. Yeah. And so I thought that was something you'd want to know. Yeah. So
thank you for saying that. Damn.
Yeah, it's a gut punch. Yep, Satine came up with the name Ben. So
I just thought Ben eventually came out because, I don't know, he called himself that or something, just because of whatever. And then Leia sort of may have called him that for short or something.
Right.
Yeah, but no, that makes it even harder.
Yeah, that was a Satine thing. So I thought that was a nice little touch I wanted to mention real quick.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that.
The Obi-Wan series. Usef, we finally got all 6 episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi. We've sat down, we've seen the whole thing. What are your thoughts on this series overall, and especially with the finale? What were your overall thoughts with all 6 episodes? What the story they decided to tell, and the decisions they went with? What did you think of the series?
Well, so there's a lot to unpack here.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot here.
Let me try to give a little bit of a brief without going into too much detail, because if you go into too much detail, there's a lot to talk about.
There is a lot.
So personally, for me, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I would go back. So I've watched it 3 times out of love for it. Not just because I was oh yeah, it's Obi-Wan, so let's watch it again. No, because I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed the process. At first, I didn't. Let's just be fair. At first, I was not bored, just like, okay, I thought the episode would have a little bit more than this. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So the first two episodes felt a little bit slow. I was basically, give me Vader and Obi-Wan, give them to me now.
Now, yeah.
And obviously, that's not how it works. And not because that's not how TV works, but that's not how it works because of the story. I have to understand. You have to take this out. You have to sort of unfurl it.
Right.
You can't just sort of just boom, 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 because then there's no point. But the way it feels at the end, when I watched it a second and then a third time, it does feel like a trilogy of sorts. First two episodes have a theme, second two episodes have a theme, and then the third and then third two episodes also have their own, not little theme, but a continuation of the theme.
Mm-hmm.
That's at least how I felt. Overall, those things. So everybody was like on Facebook and social media and stuff rating it as a show on IMDb and things like that. By the way, there was this thing that I sort of do. I never ever give a show a rating out of 10. I never give it a 7, and I prefer never to give anything a rating out of 10 ever. Not even at work, not even at personal life, nothing. Because I
10
feel
is
like a
perfection.
7 out of 10 is
Yeah.
far too neutral. So here's the thing: if you ever want to give something a 7, don't try to choose either a 6 or an 8. Why?
Mhm.
Because if you look back later on and you try to choose between 3 or 4 different things that are 7s, it's going to be tough. Whereas if you choose between 8 and 6, hell yeah, it's different. So an
Mhm.
8 is more like, okay, yeah, you're voting it up. And a 6 is you're voting it down. And there's a clear difference here. So a 7 is like, yeah, it was good. But an 8 is like, yeah, it was better than just good. Or a 6 is like, well, didn't really deserve the good rating. So you know what I mean? So
Right,
a
right.
4 out of 5 is much better than a sort of 3 out of 5. That being said, for me, Obi-Wan Kenobi was a 4 out of 5, 4.5 out of 5, like between 8 and 9 for sure.
Mhm.
Because I know it's true that we didn't get as much actual physical action as we wanted to, but the emotional trauma with that show was heavy. It was good. I enjoyed it, even though it was just a few moments, like 2 or 3 moments, and there were a lot more in there. Like there were a lot of details in there about like the path that the Jedi used to escape, the different things, like the different things that the Inquisitors mentioned in between, within each other's characters, within the little snippets of the conversations. Those were a lot. Those were really telling, actually. The presence that they had and the little the uses of the Force which they used. But then obviously, let's focus on the main things, right? Let's not get really um, distracted here. Obi-Wan and Vader and the use of the Force and Obi-Wan sort of trying to recover and be himself, and then he's hiding out. This is not Obi-Wan Kenobi. Let's just not use the real generic term Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is General Kenobi, who
Mhm.
was general in the Clone Wars, who was Jedi Knight and Jedi Master. Here he is, I don't know, like just doing some odd job on some planet out in the outer rim, sort of thing, and he's doing it on purpose just so he can sit back and watch the kid, and then the kid's uncle is like throwing the toy back at him, and
Yeah.
then he's having to sit there, watch a fellow Jedi get strangled, hung up by his neck in the middle of the freaking street. Damn, that is a lot. That is a hell of an opening. That's
Yeah.
a hell of an entrance. I know it was. I did not want to see that, but it spoke to me. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And then the Vader coming back. Honestly, there's just so I can't. I'm not. There's no way I can talk about this without taking too much time. So, but yes. So, the short answer, James. Damn it, James. The short answer, James, is that yes, of course, I want to see season 2. I am worried about this decision that I want to make, or about this choice that I'm making, that I want to see a second season. I think that I might just have to leave it there. It might even be better for me, but I really want one. Now, so what would I like to see in the second season is learnings of the Force with Qui-Gon. And I know that's not necessarily something that's going to be as impactful as season 1, because basically the whole Jedi versus, the whole Vader versus Obi-Wan thing, technically, this season of Obi-Wan resolved that, or not resolved, gave us a bit of closure of how it would look like, you know. So if we were to see season 2, it's because I want to see Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon. And I'll be honest, I was not happy that I only saw Qui-Gon for like 10 seconds in the entire thing. I thought I'd see him. Yeah. I thought I'd see him for like half an episode. I thought I'd see him bring Obi-Wan back into this thing. So I was really proud of Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know what I mean? Like when you're proud of the character
Mhm.
that you love and you follow. I was really proud of him when he didn't need Qui-Gon to actually get back into the fight and recover himself and defeat Vader, because he hadn't faced Vader before ever. He'd only ever faced Anakin,
Right.
and Vader was a different animal of that. And that was really important for me to see as well. How Obi-Wan tackled Vader, that was big. It was really, really, really big. And then, you know, I was really proud of him to see him overcome him without needing Qui-Gon. But I wanted to see Qui-Gon a lot, because I love the Force. Because I know that the Force is what makes Star Wars extremely unique. Extremely unique. I know unique. Nothing's supposed to be more unique than something else just because of English. You know, the way the language is set up. But it is extremely unique nonetheless. So that that is just so cool for me to see the Force in depth. And we got to see a little bit of it in depth, the same way we saw Luke Skywalker cut himself off from the Force in the sequel trilogy, right?
Right.
But seriously, so here was Obi-Wan, here he was, and he was in trouble. And then even in episode 3, 2 or 3, 3, when the character who's there, and she is a stormtrooper. Well, she's not a stormtrooper. She's a lieutenant, I think, and she's on the planet where he and Leia are sort of going, and they're getting smuggled across to this planet, and she helps them escape. You know, she shoots down the other officers,
Mhm.
and she tells Obi-Wan, "You have to heal mentally, not just physically." You know that, right?
Yeah.
She basically tells him that, and so this is effing cool. Obviously, it doesn't make a lot of sense that a person like this would tell a Jedi master, "You have to heal this way," assuming he would have to know this on his own. But this part of the storytelling, I suppose. But yeah, it was important to see these conversations, because the Force is the Force, and everybody feels it, regardless of how in tune you are. You feel it in different ways, and that's the amazing thing about it. Yeah, I'm sorry, that was my rant.
Oh no, you're
Thank
good,
you,
man.
Brian, for indulging me. You go for it.
So, I think you hit the nail on the head with the first 2 episodes. They were a little slow. I thought they were good, but they were slow, and it was Obi-Wan Kenobi was a slow burn story from beginning to end. And you guys know I love slow burn stories. I love them. I love it when it starts off slow and then it just kind of builds up to this big crescendo. And for me personally, as the episodes went, they got better. All 6 episodes, boom, boom, boom. They just kept going up and up and up for me. Even with episode 4 that everybody said was filler, when he goes into the Inquisitorius, the fortress, to get Leia. Everybody, I saw a lot of people saying that episode was filler. I didn't see it as filler. That was Obi-Wan really tapping back into who he was before,
Exactly.
and starting to get those powers back and everything.
Fantastic.
That episode had to be
Right.
there.
Right.
I really enjoyed the series. Like I said, some of the cinematography left a little bit to be desired as far as I'm concerned. But I really, really liked it. And like you said, with the emotional aspect of it, that is what I wanted to see. I wanted to see, before we saw the series, going into it, I had said, even on this podcast, I had said, I really wanted to see a broken Obi-Wan. I wanted to see an Obi-Wan that was not the same person he was before. Somebody who, like oh, how the mighty have fallen kind of Obi-Wan. You know what I mean? And I wanted to see him find out that Anakin was still alive. I wanted Vader to say something to him along the lines of, "Look at what you did to me."
Oh, how did you feel about the way he found out?
I loved it.
Like him being in the back there,
At first,
he was sort of in battle with,
At first, because that was the end of the 2nd episode, right?
Exactly, right.
At
with
first,
the sister when she was.
I was confused. I was like, "Wait, what?" And I said something to one of my buddies about it. And I'm like, okay, I know this is just the first third of the story. I get that. And I'm sure we're going to get an answer along the lines. But for right now, it's bothering me how she knew that it was Anakin. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, oh, well, that was her at the beginning as a youngling. She had to have seen Anakin. Everybody knew who Obi-Wan and Anakin was in the Jedi Order. You know, Anakin was the chosen one. Everybody knew who Anakin Skywalker was. And she probably heard a clone trooper refer to him as Lord Vader. You know, and so when this mysterious black cloaked figure pops out of nowhere named Lord Vader, you're like, oh, well, that's Anakin Skywalker. So after I started thinking about it, it made sense. And I ended up being right about how she found out. So at first it bothered me, but the more I thought about it, the more I was okay with it. But the look on Obi-Wan's face when she says, you know, Lord Vader will be pleased. And that's when, because Obi-Wan knew Anakin was Vader. And as soon as she said Lord Vader, to him, that was the moment. He didn't even have to hear the word, the word Anakin. He just knew that Vader was still alive. Like, oh, shit.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
So as the series went on, and let's talk about that third episode where Vader just completely wiped the floor with Obi-Wan.
Oh, my God.
That
the
was,
fire scene.
Yes. That entire sequence was awesome.
He lands on the base, and he's walking through that sort of narrow street, and Obi-Wan is peering through the windows, and he sees him from afar for the first time. And he doesn't just see him walking in his cape and his black suit. He sees him tear apart innocence.
Being
for
a
no
menace.
Good reason.
Yeah.
Being a menace, yes. Being a menace. And then Vader's waiting out for him out in the cold. He just ignites his red lightsaber. Remember that bit?
That was a really cool shot. It just stood there,
you
know, and then when
pure cinema right there.
Oh, it was amazing, and when you can see the panic in Obi-Wan's face. You could see the panic in Obi-Wan. Like, where do I go? Like that's him. Like, what the hell? And then when Vader walks up to him, and Obi-Wan activates his lightsaber, and Vader walks up to him. And Obi-Wan asks
he doesn't just walk up to him. He's sort of like, you know that thing where they're like, he's sort of surrounding him, and then I'm sitting there focused. My jaw's almost dropping because I'm so avidly watching this. My wife's sitting next to me. She's going, "Oh my God, he's hunting him!" And I'm like, "Damn!" In my mind, I'm like, "Yeah, he is." You know what I mean? I'm staying quiet because I can't bear to get distracted. But in my mind, I'm like, "Fuck yeah, he is." I'm glad I married you. Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like that was the feeling I felt because she was absolutely right. That is what they wanted us to feel.
Yeah.
He was
that panic that Obi-Wan was feeling. He was the prey.
And you could just feel the revenge come out through the screen when Vader was just dragging Obi-Wan through the fire.
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh my God.
And when Obi-Wan asks him, what have you become? And he's like, I am what you made me.
You made me.
And it's like, oh God, I cheered when I heard that.
New quote, just new. This. I think this quote was etched into every single one of us from now on. Like we didn't even need to ask each other about this thing anymore. This was just unbelievable, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. And then Vader said a line also to Obi-Wan while he's just throwing it, because Vader was toying with Obi-Wan hard. He was just toying with it. Vader could have ended Obi-Wan in an instant if he wanted to at that point. But he was toying with him. And when Vader tells him, you should have killed me when you had the chance. Because that's one thing we've always talked about, was how Obi-Wan just left Anakin for dead.
Yeah.
And that just added to, even more. And then when you bring up Obi-Wan getting dragged through the fire, wow. It was just, look, we were all worried that Disney was going to dumb Vader down. You remember that? We were worried that they were going to be like, oh, it's all going to be kid-friendly stuff. Yeah, Vader's going to be like a Disney prince now, basically. And then we see Rogue One, him mowing down rebels, and then we see this, and we're like, Jesus Christ. Man, he is pissed. And and then he lets them take Obi-Wan. He lets him get away. But building up to that finale, how Vader had tunnel vision. He simply had tunnel vision. He wanted Obi-Wan. He didn't care about anything else. He wanted Obi-Wan. And when they landed on, because I don't even know the name of that planet that they fought on. I have no idea what the name of that planet was.
Oh, me neither.
And when Vader walks out and he's just facing Obi-Wan down, he's like, did you come to destroy me, Obi-Wan? It was beautiful. He's, I will do what I must. And then we got to talk about this duel for a second, because at the end of episode 3, I remember sitting there going, that better not have been the rematch of the century Kathleen Kennedy was talking about. That better not have been it, because I'm going to
That
be
wasn't enough.
pissed. Yeah, I'm going to be pissed if that's what that was. And so while they're fighting, right, while this is going on, my jaws just dropped, because that is the Obi-Wan that we all remembered, was him just being a badass and going up against Vader, giving Vader a run for his money, making Vader go to a two-handed lightsaber for him. You remember that? Like, he just, Vader's always fought with one hand. He never, ever used two hands. It was very rare. And to see him really get into it like that. And then Obi-Wan breaking out the portable high ground and just beating Vader down with it. Like, was just, when he lifted all the rocks behind him and just starts chucking him at Vader. I call that the portable high ground. He beat Vader down with the high ground. And the whole interaction between, Vader and Obi-Wan there at the end after his mask has been cut off, and you see the kind of transition between Vader and Anakin back and forth. It really, I feel like that. I mean, it was obvious that was Anakin coming through for just a moment. Telling Obi-Wan, it's not your fault. I am what I am. I did this, and then Vader takes back over. The same way I'm going to destroy you, and it was bone chilling to watch. It was so great, and it was an awesome reflection of Rebels when Ahsoka is fighting Vader, and we see that same kind of interaction.
Oh my God, yeah.
And it was really cool to finally see.
It makes that fight feel even more special, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
But you would think at some point Vader would reinforce his helmet somehow, because if Ahsoka took out a piece of his helmet and Obi-Wan took out a piece of his helmet, you'd think, man, I really need to do something about this helmet, because everybody keeps getting me on the exact same damn spot. But yeah, it was an amazing moment. And it kind of fixed a little bit the whole from a certain point of view thing from the old classic trilogy, where Obi-Wan told Luke, Vader betrayed and murdered your father. Now we have this line from Vader saying, or from Anakin saying, you didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did. Right. And so it really took that burden off of Obi-Wan to allow him to become the Alec Guinness Obi-Wan that we knew from the classics.
Yeah, because then
and
Luke just says,
it really fixed
from
that.
a certain point of view, like, are you?
Yeah,
are you
what the
nuts?
hell's wrong with you?
Are
Like,
you effing kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, are you nuts? Whereas actually, he actually has a point. Like, you haven't seen what I've seen, but we don't get to see that until now, finally.
Right, and it really lent back to that. And then that line from Obi-Wan, when he's like, then my friend is truly dead. And it was a nice reflection of Luke from Return of the Jedi when he said, then my father is truly dead, and walks off. It was a great, and when Luke says that to him now, that scene in Return of the Jedi now with Luke and Vader,
that hit,
it's different now. Yeah, because Vader's Obi-Wan once thought as you did. And
that is what we wanted to see.
Yes.
So basically, in the build-up to Obi-Wan, that's what we kept talking about. Those few lines. Obi-Wan once fought as you did. He basically thought this, and he wanted to persuade you. So I know we never saw him actually try to persuade Vader out of this in Obi-Wan Kenobi. I don't think we should have, because he was way beyond that point by then. But it was still something. Like, it was still Vader. And by the way, that might be season 2, James. It might be season 2. But yeah, I mean, I don't think he's gonna see Vader again until A New Hope. What do you think?
I completely agree with you. I don't. Yeah, Vader's done. If they do a season 2, there will be no Vader. I think it was very I think it was very cut and dry at the end of the series when we see Palpatine and how he basically threatens Vader into forgetting about the past. Yeah, he basically threatens Vader, and Vader instantly is like, "Yes, my master." And he just out of his mind.
Like, no, master. My feelings are concentrated. That sort of thing.
Yeah, and so I don't think Vader's going to be in season 2. Personally, as much as I love season 1, I don't want to see a season 2. I just
not at all,
don't.
Right?
No, I don't, because going into season 1, right? As soon as they announced that there was going to be an Obi-Wan series, everybody knew what the story was going to be. Not necessarily that Leia was going to be involved, but that eventually
off Obi-Wan and Vader.
Right, and that's what we knew it was going to be.
So we all thought it was going to be Luke in the center,
right?
Or like if we were going to see a character from those two would have been Luke, not Leia. But we saw Leia. We didn't see any of Luke.
Yeah, hardly
We
at
just
all.
saw
Yeah.
the perfect moment at the end with like the.
And somebody, I don't remember who it was. I feel like somebody mentioned on this podcast that they thought the only thing that would get Obi-Wan off of Tatooine was Leia. And I don't remember who it was. We're going to have to go back and find out, but they were right, whoever they were. I don't remember who it was, but somebody was right. And so, yeah, but the whole series, I don't want to see a season 2. I feel like the story was told. It fits perfectly into canon as it is. It didn't break anything like everybody was worried it was going to. I did see how a lot of people are upset because of Vader's line in episode 4 that says, "When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master." And they've met once before. There's nothing wrong there, because when he left Obi-Wan, he basically was the learner. You know, he didn't leave Obi-Wan in the Obi-Wan series. He left Obi-Wan in episode 3.
Yeah. So this is the third question in our mailbag questions.
It is.
Because,
You're right. You're right. Yeah, you're right. We'll get to that here in a little bit. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
because it
you're right.
Leave him here, but yeah, we'll talk about it. Yeah.
But yeah, it's. I don't really care to see a season 2. If they do it, I don't want them to do a season 2 just for the sake of doing one, because season 1 was so successful.
Okay.
Don't do it just for that.
You would tell someone. So you would tell someone like me, who would basically want to. So before, you know, when I was saying my opinion about this, I was saying, like, you know, I would want to see a season 2, but I'm worried that it's not actually what I'd want to see. Like, I might be doing myself harm, sort of thing, where like, oh, I wish I didn't wish for that. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
That's actually how I feel about it.
If there's a
Even
story,
though I want to see one, it might not
Yes.
be what I. Yeah, the story.
if there's a story there, don't sit down and say, we're doing a season 2. What's the story? Sit down and say, we have a story. Do we want to do a season 2? Don't do it the other way.
Which is what Kathleen Kennedy said and Ewan McGregor said.
Right. And so they've done that with like Rogue Squadron with the film. I know that they said they've put that film kind of on the back burner.
Yeah.
Because they have a plan with where they want to go with the films, which is music to everybody's ears that they finally have a plan.
Yeah.
And that film didn't fit into the plan, so they set it to the side, which is great. Yeah. That's awesome. Don't put a film out just for the sake of putting a film out. Do it to serve the story. So I'm hoping they apply that same strategy to Obi-Wan. And if they come out and say, you know, this isn't really a story we think really needs to be told, then leave it be. Let it be.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
so how about this? What if they put out a novel
about Obi-Wan?
Obi-Wan Kenobi? Yeah, post Obi-Wan Kenobi show, where it showed what I wanted, the Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon stuff, the Force stuff, which I would
if there's a story there for it, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Because
where it would be like a novel. He might even meet, you know, Cal Kestis through the Force there.
Well,
we don't know. He might even speak through the Force to that Inquisitor, to the sister, which we see, who is alive by the end of the
right.
She's not dead. You know, she is alive. Let's not forget her. And there is a big rumor going around that she's going to be in the next Jedi Fallen Order game, which is not going to be called Fallen Order.
Right. It's Survivor. Jedi Survivor.
Survivor. Yes, that's the one. I've forgotten about that.
Yeah. The thing with the season 2 is season 1 was so emotional, right? We focused on the relationship between him and Anakin, right? And that was Obi-Wan dealing with the PTSD and, you know, and kind of coming full circle back into who he was originally and forgiving himself basically for everything that happened. Now that we're past that point, I don't see there being a lot of emotion in a season 2 because we're basically at the Alec Guinness Obi-Wan at this point. He has officially morphed into that Alec Guinness. And so
we're the first season, but
season 2 wouldn't be nearly as emotional as what season 1 was, and it would end up just being a bunch of flashy lightsaber battles and, you know, stuff like that. So I'm not sold on a season 2. Everything with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, yes, put that in a novel for the love of God. Yes, please. I would love to read that. Because we know Qui-Gon did come to Obi-Wan on Tatooine and other canon material. We do know that happened. So I would love to see some more interactions between the two of them. But yeah, no, I think the series was handled well, all things considered. A couple of little things I think could have been done differently, but I think overall it was a great addition to the canon. It fit in really well. It didn't retcon anything. and I think it worked out really well. I don't think it's what everybody really expected, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing either. So, I just, like I said, I hope they do it for the right reasons if they do. So, anything else you want to add about Obi-Wan before we move on to the next question?
Just that I loved it, and actually, everything I said about season 2, you just basically helped me get some closure on what I actually wanted. I think so. I think this is something that every fan base goes through. If there's something that you feel like is missing, and you get it, and you feel like you want more, okay, let's just calm down.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I have to say that to myself, literally. Like, I'm not saying this to anybody else, by the way. I'm saying this to myself first.
Sometimes
If
less
you
is
feel
more.
like you can relate to me,
Yeah.
like, by all means, relate. If you feel like, no, Yusuf, you're wrong, like, I actually want some more, excellent. But remember, you got to also help define what kind of thing you want more of, if that's possible.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, to just say, I want more, and then, like, give me more, and then you're unhappy with what you get, like, well, you could have said how you wanted it. You know what I mean? So for me to, like, we all wanted an Obi-Wan show, and we knew what we wanted more or less, like either movies or limited series. So now we got one. We're like, okay, so season 2. Personally, I want one, but I don't think it's what's best for me. And now through this conversation right now with Brian, it's basically shown that actually what I really want out of season 2, I would be really satisfied in a novel with.
Yes.
And I personally, as Yusuf, yeah, I would actually be really satisfied with that. Like
I would
the Force
dive
journey,
into that head first. Yep.
and maybe some stuff with Luke, maybe some stuff like something relating to a lightsaber duel here or there or something with the guys that we saw, helping out Jedi, smugglers, something.
The path. Yeah.
Connecting with the Force with Reva, who was the third sister, the path, of course, the path. Maybe Reva goes out and tries to help people recover the path. Maybe, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of possibilities there. And the good thing about Lucasfilm was that they're adding these characters for potential possibilities in the future of using these characters, and that's fantastic. That's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that I don't really have much more to add because it's just so fantastic. Otherwise, we keep talking forever.
That's true. Fair enough. We can talk about Obi-Wan forever. Thanks for sending in the question, James. Thanks again for the kind words. And thanks for being a listener, brother. I do appreciate it. Let's move on to the second question this week. Question number 2 comes from Ashton Burden. And Ashton writes in and says, "Hey, Brian and crew, I was wondering about your opinions on Taika Waititi's comments on Star Wars and him forgetting Natalie Portman was ever in Star Wars.
So funny.
Personally, I don't think he should be working on the film if he forgets what came before so easily." Thanks for the question, Ashton, and thanks for the comments. So, for those of you that don't know, for those of you who've been living under a rock, Taika Waititi was talking on a podcast not too long ago and was telling the story about when he was finishing up Thor: Love and Thunder, which we know Natalie Portman is the mighty Thor in that film. And
She-Thor, too.
Yeah, and so he asked her, or she asked him, so what are you doing after this? What do you got next on your plate? And he said, well, I'm doing this Star Wars thing. And he's like,
she's like, yeah, good luck.
And she's like, good luck. And he was like, so would you ever want to be in a Star Wars movie? Yeah, and she was like,
I've already been in 3. Crazy douche.
I was already in 3 of them, and he was like, I forgot about those. Like, so look, it's funny. It's funny, ironic. It's not like funny, haha. It's like funny, like
it's funny, yeah.
I don't even know where to begin with this. So I get where everybody's coming from, where they're like, look, do we really want him touching Star Wars if he completely forgot about Padme? I get where you guys are coming from.
It's not. A friend of mine asked me this. He's like, "Is it easy to forget about her?" No, right?
No, it's not.
Yeah, no, it's not easy. No,
it is not easy to forget about Padme.
How on earth could he space out? Like, this is just like
she only gave birth to the Skywalker twins. I mean, like that's like. I get where everybody's coming from. I get it, especially with like after the whole Rian Johnson fiasco and everybody got pissed off at him.
Oh God, yeah.
I get where everybody's coming from, where they're like, "Look, do we really want this guy?" Part of me agrees with you guys. Part of me agrees, like, man, do I really want him doing a Star Wars movie if he's already forgotten about half of the films that came out before Disney got a hold of it? But then the other part of me has to remind myself that he's working on a Star Wars movie that is so detached from everything else that has come before. That does it matter? You know what I mean? Like, does it matter that he forgot Padme was Natalie Portman was Padme?
The man
Does it matter?
The man has forgotten. The man has transcended the previous films. He's forgotten what's going on. He's so detached from them that he doesn't even know.
See, because here's the thing. You know, Kathleen Kennedy said that they've got a roadmap for Star Wars now, and that Taika Waititi's film will be the first film in that roadmap, right? And so, if they have a roadmap, that means they are. And if he's doing a film that is so detached from everything else that we've had so far, and that's the beginning of the roadmap, that means we're getting ready to get a whole new wave, a whole new era of Star Wars, basically. Maybe not an era, but a whole new pocket of the universe that we've never seen, characters we've never met, an entirely new story that we've never heard. So, does it matter if he doesn't know Natalie Portman's Padme? Does that matter? And I don't know which way to go. I get where everybody's coming from. Part of me agrees with you. Like, yeah, like, you know, that's kind of a big deal. But at the same time, like, I don't know. I just, what do you think, man? Because I'm kind of both mindsets here.
So, I mean, firstly, I do think it was accidental. I think it was accidental. I don't think it was disrespectful or anything. I just think it was accidental. I just think it was he was
that was like
out.
a insert foot into mouth moment, like.
Yeah. I mean, I think he might have just been on something. Like maybe it was just like
it is Taika Waititi. I mean,
right. You know, maybe he was just like spacing out or something. I just spaced out at the start of this podcast. Maybe just spaced out to a worse degree. You know.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Oh,
maybe it was
God.
just that embarrassing of a moment. Like, yeah, you can't have it worse than that. Like more unlucky than that.
But that's
you know
like
what I mean?
that's like meeting George Lucas, right? That's like meeting George Lucas, getting him on a podcast, and being like, so.
And you're like, so what do you do?
Yeah, so what do you do for a living? Or like, have you ever seen Star Wars? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just. It's. I don't know, man. Like, part of me wants.
Lucas, have you ever seen Star
Have you ever seen Star Wars? Like, part of me wants to be like.
Introduce you to my friend Harrison Ford.
Yeah, no,
have
you
you guys met before? You'd be like, no.
I bet you two get along great. Yeah, no, it's like part of me is like, I get it. I don't want you touching my Star Wars. But the other part of me is like, forgive him because it's a forgivable thing. And the other part of me is like, it's an unforgivable thing.
Let's just, can we redefine something here? What is he working on for Star Wars? Like, this is something else that's going to help people gauge this.
We don't know.
We don't know.
We have no idea.
That is the point here.
We do know it's going to be something completely new and fresh.
It's completely new and fresh. And it's not necessarily High Republic either. It could be completely something else as well.
Right.
That's exactly right.
But,
right?
you know, yeah, right. Yeah. But there's another thing with Taika Waititi, though. I guess there's a lot of people giving him crap about Thor: Love and Thunder, how he kind of retconned Korg's background a little bit from Ragnarok. Because in Thor Ragnarok, I guess Korg made this comment about he didn't make enough flyers for his revolution, and the only people that showed up were his mom and her boyfriend. And then in Love and Thunder, he says, yeah, my two dads. And, you know, like, now people are saying, oh, he retconned his own character in the name of wokeness. And I'm like, no, I just think it was a Freudian slip thing. I just think he forgot, you know, like he forgot that Natalie Portman was in Star Wars. And so I just,
the man is forgetful.
That's the thing that worries me more than anything. Is that he forgets what he already wrote before, and is he going to retcon something that he did in another Star Wars movie if he does another one somewhere else?
There was
you know
no
what I mean?
point of retconning what he did in Marvel. Like there was I mean, what? Like how many movies and how many years apart? There was no point in you doing that.
Yeah,
like,
there
didn't hold back the story. Yeah. There was no canon involved. Come on, man. Like seriously.
Right, and then that's what worries me. It has nothing to do with the two dads thing. I know people are like, "Oh, he's a homophobe." No, that's not the case at all. It's the retconning that.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, pick a backstory and stick with it. I don't care which one you go with. Pick one and stick with it. Yeah. So that's what I'm worried about more about his doing Star Wars than I am him forgetting Natalie Portman was Padme. Right. You know, so.
No, you said it best right now. Just pick a backstory and stick with it.
Yeah, and so I'm hoping that he's learning from those mistakes and that he's going to carry those into working on Star Wars. So I guess he's working on it now as we speak. So I appreciate the question, Ashton, but I think it's something that we're going to have to wait and see. I think this is a wait and see kind of question, and just
Personally, let me just say, it wouldn't upset me that he's doing a film. No.
oh no, it doesn't upset me at all.
It'd be freaking funny. I mean, imagine him. So we're doing the films, and he's at Comic-Con or like a Lucasfilm, at Disney Expo, and he's just sitting there on the panel, and some reporter goes, "So yeah, you're at a Lucasfilm Expo, by the way. Like, you're actually the director here. You remember that, right? Like, you're not gonna forget that you're the director on this film." Like, imagine, he's gonna face so much shit because of this. Like, he's just gonna forever. Nobody's gonna let him like live this down. You know what I mean? Like, he's gonna have this hanging over his head forever now.
Oh yeah, no, he will, because that's
okay.
As a Star Wars fan, you don't forget that Natalie Portman is Padme.
Oh,
you
no,
just
no.
don't do that.
Exactly.
That is
Exactly.
that's unforgivable to a lot of people. So.
Yep.
But like I said, we'll just have to wait and see. But thanks for sending in the question, Ashton. Guys, let us
Yes,
know in the
thanks for
comments. This
asking.
is the one I'm
Real
going to
fast
ask you
about
guys about. Keep it civil, but get in the comments section and let us know, does it freak you guys out that he forgot that Natalie Portman was Padme? Does it freak you out that he's going to be touching Star Wars and that he's kicking off the future of the Star Wars films after a blunder like this? Let us know. Do you think it matters? Do you think it doesn't matter? I'd
He's
love
a
to
good
hear your
writer,
guys'
though.
thoughts. He's a good writer,
That,
yeah.
that few things that we wrote down, like, no, he understands action and entertainment and things
Yeah.
that are good and emotional fights and stuff. He is a good writer. He's a modern writer.
Well, he redefined Thor in Ragnarok.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so
which was needed.
Yeah, it
I
was
love
sorely
Thor, and I
needed,
felt
yeah.
He needed a fresh take. He was way too much of a meathead. I don't think he fixed that, but I mean, not because he was aiming for it. He just helped redefine it.
right,
It was
right,
important.
right.
Especially
So,
with the new direction Marvel's going and everything. Yeah.
and the great thing about him doing the first film in a new direction is that if it doesn't
Yeah.
work, they can change. They have a chance to change the direction and fix it. You know what I mean? So time will tell.
Completely,
Let's just
yeah.
wait and see what he can do. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's set to release next year. That seems too early if he's just now starting to work on it. I don't know. We'll find out. Anyway, so thanks for sending in the question, though, Ashton. I do appreciate it. And the third question this week, let's get through this one, and we'll call it an episode. This question this episode comes from Jamie Weathers, and Jamie has written in and says, "How do you feel about retcons in the current canon? For example, Vader saying in A New Hope, when I left you, I was but the learner, but in Obi-Wan, Vader is way past being his apprentice. Is it something that bothers you, or do you roll with the punches and just accept the new version of events?" Thanks for the question, Jamie. So yeah, we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier with this exact line. I don't believe this one is a retcon. I think this is still Vader referring to when he left
we gotta
Obi-Wan in
define
Episode
this.
3. I was but the learner, now I am the master. Because we see Anakin is still learning from Obi-Wan, even though he is a knight.
Yeah, exactly. So
he's
people
still
got to
learning.
realize when he's referring to.
Right. And so I don't see that as a retcon at all. I don't think the Obi-Wan Kenobi series broke that at all. And so I don't see that as an issue. However, there are other events in canon that there are retcons that exist. There are things that just don't make sense. There's things that directly fly into the face of other things. I mentioned something earlier from Queen's Hope, how 3PO, it says in the novel he had his gold plates, but we obviously know at the wedding from Episode 2 he didn't. He was still in his sandblasted moisture farm plating, right? So there are things that have happened. The Ahsoka novel is a great example of retcons. In the Ahsoka novel, there were some flashback scenes to her version of Order 66 and what happened, which came out well before the last season of Clone Wars did. Still talks about her having the green and yellow sabers, some things that happened between her and Rex, things like that. And then the Clone Wars came out, and she has 2 blue sabers. The events didn't go down quite the same, but they're close enough where you could go, okay, I guess you could say that was a little vague enough to allow that. Another great one is Caleb Dune, Kanan's Order 66. In the comics, we had an entirely different version of what happened in Bad Batch, at the first episode of Bad Batch. Poe and Rey meeting for the first time in the novelization of The Force Awakens. That was at the end of The Force Awakens, and then they ended up moving it to the end of The Last Jedi in the film. Poe's backstory in The Rise of Skywalker of him being a spice runner and, and running off to join the Resistance when we actually found out he joined the Republic first and then the Resistance. Like, there's a lot of different things that don't add up. And it's not something that really bothers me a whole lot. I kind of roll with the punches with it. And it's not that I just accept the new version of what happens. It's not like, oh, if in this book, 3PO's got his gold plates. No, that's not the way I look at it. I don't accept that. What I accept is what I can physically see. So if it's in the films, to me, that's canon. That overrides anything in a novel. So like Ro and Pei. Wow, what is wrong with me? Poe and Rey meeting for the first time in The Last Jedi. Since I saw that happen at the end of The Last Jedi, to me, it no longer happened in the novel at the end of The Force Awakens. So if you can see it happen, then to me, it trumps anything in a novel. Like for example, Ahsoka's stuff, or the retcons in her novel. From the way I look at it, what I saw in Clone Wars trumps what happened in the novel because I could physically see it. 3PO being Golden Queen's Hope, obviously that's not the case. He was rusted and sandblasted at the end of the film in episode 2, so we know that's not the case. So I accept what I could physically see. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the way I look at it. Usef, do you think there may be a different, better way to look at it, or where are you at on it?
I'm a little bit in between both. So there's if I had to break this down, Ashton's actually asking a really cool question here.
Jamie?
I'm sorry, Jamie.
Jamie, yeah.
I'm sorry, Ashton was the last question. I'm sorry, I got confused there. Yeah. So, or do you have to sort of roll with the punches if you feel it on? So, personally, yeah, I just sort of go with it because it happens, and I can't do anything about it.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm not happy about it, but I sort of personally I only follow canon. And part of the reason why we're doing the Star Wars Canon Podcast is because we want to focus on what the story is. And so I previously read, all the way at the beginning when I started getting into this podcast, I started reading some stuff and I found that it was legends. And I was like, oh, cool. So it's part of like legends within the canon. And I found out, no, it's not. So that was, oh, okay. So I shouldn't read this. So obviously there's no such thing as shouldn't. But for me, it was a shouldn't, just because that's not what I was necessarily wanting to be engaged with in the future. So that being said, I'm really, really strict on hearing what is the canon so that I can keep following the canon. So I have to keep rolling with the punches. That being said, I'm not happy about having changes every now and then. Like, for F's sake, even if I didn't necessarily care about whether or not her lightsaber was green or yellow or white or blue, why are you changing it? Why don't you just keep going? Why did you have to do that? There's no reason why you have to do anything. The story is the story. It was told already. If you want to move around it, you will be able to. There is enough wiggle room. So it does piss me off. So this is my emotions on it. Now, in terms of the story,
I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate
I'm not
you
laughing.
I'm not laughing
I know
because exactly why. I completely feel like you understand exactly where I'm coming.
I do.
Like, I completely feel that.
I get it.
I know you understand exactly where I'm coming from.
I'm not laughing because
by the way,
what you're saying. I'm laughing at how you said it.
I am. I'm also like how much of a novice I am in comparison to you, having read all the books you have. And here I am at the start of it, and I'm feeling this, not frustrated, but venting about it. And you're just like, look, you don't even know that.
No, that's not what I'm getting at all.
I can hear that through your laugh.
No.
Tell me if I'm wrong.
No. That's not what I'm getting at. No, I wasn't laughing at what you were saying. I was laughing at how you were saying it. He's like, that's because that's what really pisses me off. And I'm like, oh, I get it. Fair enough. I totally get it. Because look, cool. I get it. Because if a novel came out and said something along the lines of, the lightsaber Anakin killed Obi-Wan on Mustafar.
Okay. For example, right.
Yeah. that's gonna piss me off because I'll be like, this isn't canon. Why would you say this is canon if Anakin did not kill Obi-Wan on Mustafar? Because obviously he did not. You know, like, so that I guess I shouldn't say not. I guess I roll with the punches up to a certain degree.
Yes, up to a certain degree.
Yeah.
So something else here is I just want to touch a little bit on Obi-Wan. You know, so I know Brian just mentioned this just now, but yeah. So the whole point behind him leaving Obi-Wan as you know, I was but the learner, but now I am the master. It's not in the show. It's when he left him in episode 3. Maybe that's not so clear, but yeah, it is what he means. And by the way, when he leads him in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show series, technically it's not a thing of master and apprentice anymore. It's more of a face-off sort of thing, like look at where we are now sort of thing. And it wasn't necessarily okay, who's the master and who's the apprentice now. But it was a huge sort of bout because you could see the revenge which Vader felt and how emotional he was. And if you couldn't see how emotional he was necessarily, except in episode 3, later on you thought he wasn't. Well, I mean, listen, he let the whole other Jedi go just because he wanted to follow that one ship, and even the chief inquisitor was like, "What are you doing? Like, let's just follow them. He's one Jedi. We're gonna get him later. He's old. He's weak. We're gonna feel him out. We found him once. We'll find him again. These guys, we want to end them." He's like, "No, you follow him because I told you to." And he's like, he rolls his
Kenobi
eyes
is
or
no
something in the
ordinary
background.
Jedi.
Yeah. There's so many little details in every single episode we got to do. Like, your reaction videos are cool, but they're just not cutting it. We need to do more. Like, it's just amazing, that show. Yeah. And then we got to talk about actual novels where, like, I think it would be worth doing this at a later episode. We could do like a small series of this when we have the time for them. Actually talking about retcons that have happened in certain novels and just how much either they bugged us or what the repercussions were, because that makes much more sense for us to
There
actually
are a
answer this question with.
Yeah,
You know
there's
what I mean?
a good handful of them in canon. There's actually quite a few, to be completely honest. There are several, and so yeah, that would definitely be an episode in and of itself, sitting down and going through all of them, and trying to decide which way we want to go as far as we're concerned, which way of it is canon, which way we accept it as canon. You know what I mean? I think that'd be a fun episode.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. That was my point. Yeah, but then we could also try to sort of. I mean, I know it's difficult, but so what kind of facts would we hope would never be retconned? And I know that's difficult to say, but that's something that I really thought about when they were talking about 7, 8, 9, because simply one of the biggest feelings that we had, even if they were never said out loud, technically it was said, but not out loud by Lucasfilm, that Anakin, being the chosen one, saved or restored balance to the Force,
right,
by taking out Darth Sidious. Well, basically, when the existence of Rey taking out Palpatine in Episode 9, that sort of kind of majorly retcons that.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's something that I technically didn't want to ever see be retconned.
Right.
So if there's something else that needs to be like that, you know what I mean? So to what extent are we just rolling with the punches? Because so many other Star Wars guys that do podcasts and episodes, and friends of mine who love Star Wars, they flat out tell me, yeah, I just like to imagine that 7, 8, 9 just never happened.
Right.
Like, I'll accept that they're canon, sure. Yeah, they're canon. If anybody talks to me about that, I'll answer the questions and we'll talk about it. But I like to think that they never happened. That is a not nice feeling to have.
Right. Yeah.
And I have to say, I do share some of that feeling to a certain extent. Yeah.
Same. Yeah. Especially now that all 3 are out, since they finished that trilogy. So, yeah, and there was a lot there's a lot of retcons now that I'm thinking about it. There's several. We need to do an episode just on that alone. We really do, because there are several.
Several.
But Because I mean, almost every single novel I've ever read had something in it where I was like, wait a second, I mean, like that doesn't. But yeah, we can definitely do some episodes on that, and talk about that, because there's that. I think that needs to be addressed, because, like I said earlier, to a certain extent, I accept them. But if I just keep saying that, then I feel like they're just going to keep pushing the boundary on what we'll accept and what we won't. And so at what point do you say enough is enough? Stop fucking with the story and just do, because like you said earlier, why change Ahsoka's lightsaber colors, right? Dave Filoni came out and explained why he changed them, because Anakin was tinkering with them, and Anakin's arrogant, and he wanted it to be more like Anakin. I get that, but it's just some of them I feel like are simple cases of, this came out before that, and that happens before this. So, things are going to change. I get it. It's a living story. It's breathing as it's being made. I get it. You can't keep every single thing, every little detail straight. You know what I mean? As much as they try. Because I remember there was a comment made by Claudia Gray. I'm trying to think when it was. Was it when Lost Stars was out? I think she's doing an interview after Lost Stars, and she was talking about her writing process. And she turned in her first draft, and the story group came back and said, "This is great. We love all of it, but you cannot use this Star Destroyer name because that Star Destroyer at this time was in a different part of the galaxy." Like, they started off strong, like keeping everything straight, like ship movements, everything. And then now we've gotten to the point where it's, where let's just take the scene out of this novel and put it in that film, like that happens, 2 weeks later, like it's just, I don't know. If there's a good reason behind it, then I'm all for it. But otherwise, yeah, why mess with it? So we can end up doing a whole episode on that alone. But I definitely think that's something that we need to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. Hence, how this question turns out is basically, I think, how much we can stomach really talking about these details, because some of them are issues,
right?
And some of them set a trend, and some of them really don't matter that much, but they show you just how important it is for us that actually, we care. It's not just something easy for us to feel like, oh yeah, every now and then there's like a detail being changed.
Right.
Why change anything? What is the point? There was something nice behind these little details. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So
yeah.
I hope that answers your question, Jamie, in a roundabout kind of way. But yeah, no, it's something we're gonna probably address. Matter of fact, let's just talk about it.
Question.
Let's just talk about it next week, because
let's talk about it.
We'll talk about it next week.
Jamie has been affected by this. The fact that you sent in this question means like you thought about this. So
that's what we'll do next week on episode Order 66. We'll talk about retcons and canon and everything like that, and we'll go through and pick out some of the bigger ones and things like that, and even some of the smaller ones that the small retcons can have a big effect on the story moving forward. So thanks for sending in the question, Jamie. I do appreciate it. Anything you want to add, Usef, before we sign off for the week?
No, I'm really, really happy that we're starting to get back after the hiatus. There's so much to talk about. We can start to sort of get back into it bit by bit, everything that we've missed. We're just really excited. Thank you for the questions. I hope everybody keeps sending in your questions. They are all absolutely fantastic.
Oh yeah, and for me also, it's great to be back. I love getting on this mic talking about the one thing in the world that I love more than anything. And I shouldn't say more than anything. Family's first, but as far as Star Wars is my baby. So it's good to get on here, and we were talking before we decided to record. My personal life's getting hectic. I'm getting a promotion at work, and it's a lot to take in, and harvest just got over with, getting ready to go into fall harvest, and then taking over these new responsibilities. So this is a great stress reduction for me, and talking about this stuff, and I'm hoping next week we'll also be able to talk about the end of Brotherhood, and I'm hoping to have Shadow of the Sith finished by then, so we can kind of dive into that a little bit. I know you haven't read it yet, Usef. I don't want to give away spoilers, but I would like to talk about it a little bit. So
that's on my immediate list. So I've been going through a lot of stuff at work as well. It's okay, normal stuff. Nothing bad. Just normal. Busy stuff. And
life happens, man.
Summer, so I've been really happy to have a couple weekends off.
Oh yeah.
Just nothing, just empty brain, just music and speakers and beaches and stuff and friends. And, you know, there was a friend of mine got engaged and stuff like that. So, guys, you got to turn off it.
Oh yeah.
If you can't switch off, find something to switch off to. Like, it's so important for mental health.
Yep.
And Star Wars was doing that for me. So that is on my next immediate list. You know, and here we are, like, driving all around the country, putting audiobooks on. Me and my wife just jazzing to, you know, Leia and Bloodline and other novels and stuff. A certain point of view, got into that, the anniversary books as well. I was gonna start episode 1 novelization because I wanted to go through 1, 2, 3 novelization,
Right.
and I can't wait to go through episode 3 novelization. Because it's my favorite film. I can't wait, like the fall and everything, and the changes that Anakin goes through. Just can't wait to see it.
It's awesome.
Or read it. Yeah.
Well, it's a little different too, because like in episode 3 when they're putting Anakin on the Jedi Council and Mace Windu's like, you were on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master.
Yeah, right,
Anakin goes off in the novel. It's completely different than in the book.
Different than the book. Yeah, I heard.
He even tells Mace Windu,
by the way.
You know, Mace Windu tells him, take a seat, young Skywalker, and he's like, maybe I'll take yours. And like it's really intense.
That's completely exactly. And so that's something I've heard from you before, like on here, or maybe not on the podcast, but because we talked about it, and it sounds unbelievable.
It's good, yeah.
And I can't wait to feel it, because when you're reading, it's completely different. Like when you're reading, you're feeling it as a story, sort of thing.
Right.
Just can't wait to feel, and that's why no wonder there's so many people or YouTubers on who do Star Wars stuff. That, you know, people who do the what if sort of thing, basically inspired off of the what if from Marvel, and even from before what if from Marvel. Just saying, like, what if Star Wars did not? What if Star Wars? What if Anakin didn't take a seat? What if he did that? What if he actually fought Mace? What if this? Well, the thing is that they got inspired to say that because of the novel, not because of the film, not because of what happened in the film. It was actually because of the novel, because of how serious that response was. Then it basically showed that, oh, he could have responded in a different way. Mm-hmm. Like, he could have been violent. He could have done something else. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was just a little bit.
No, you're good.
Yeah,
so,
cool.
But yeah, I am going to want to talk about Shadow. I'm sorry, not Secret of the Sith. Shadow of the Sith. That's my number one anticipated novel this year, and it's killing me that it's taking me this long to get caught up. Mainly because with High Republic, that last novel in High Republic, Midnight Horizon, I had a hard time getting through, and so it kind of set me on the back burner a little bit, getting behind on books.
Hard time because it was boring or something.
It was a little boring for me. Yeah, it was. And I've got this weird tick that I have to read these books in the order they came out. Don't ask me why. That's why I'm reading Stories of the Jedi and Sith before I read Shadow of the Sith. It's because it came out. It's just, don't ask me why. I have no idea why.
No, that's fine. No, I mean that's fine. That's fine.
But yeah, we'll talk about that next week, about retcons, and we'll talk a little bit about Secret of the. I did it again. Secret of the Sith. Shadow of the Sith. I don't know why I keep wanting to call it Secret of the Sith. We'll talk about that a little bit too. So, guys, thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us this week.
Thanks
I sure do appreciate it.
Thanks for branding with all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to Usef for joining me from across the pond. I sure appreciate it. Show's always kind of a little boring when I do it by myself, so it's nice to have you here and get to talk with you, somebody who loves Star Wars just as much as I do.
Oh, it is a blessing.
It's awesome to have you on.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for the platform, Brian.
Thanks to everybody for coming and hanging out with us and talking Star Wars. If you guys want to help support us in any way.
Thank you for the questions, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys want to help support us in any way, visit patreon.com/1138productions. You guys can check out our Facebook page as well and our YouTube channel. The links for those will be in the description of this podcast. Make sure to check out 1138productions.com for this podcast and the Marvel Cast. I'm sure the guys over at the Marvel Cast would love for you guys to show some love there also. And until next week, guys, this is Brian and Usef signing off. Make sure to keep it civil in the comments, and may the Force be with you guys.